Deep in the dense forest, rustling sounds mixed with hurried, ragged breathing rang out without pause. A figure hurried along a path covered in dry leaves, her legs trembling, yet she still forced herself to keep running. The young girl, terrified to the extreme, anxiously and tremblingly pushed aside the branches in front of her. Her panic-filled eyes darted around for a way out when suddenly a cold voice rang out behind her. "She's over there. Stop. Don't run." Hearing those words, the girl was instantly seized by fear. Despair welled up in her heart as she thought, "This is bad. They've caught up after all. Run, I have to run fast." Thinking so, she immediately turned to flee. But before she could get far, her foot caught on a tree root. A shrill cry rang out as her small body fell to the ground, the noise immediately drawing the men behind her. One fierce-looking man instantly shouted, "She's here. Grab her. Don't let her escape again this time." Hearing that, the girl trembled, her hands clutching at the grass beside her as she thought in despair, "I'm afraid there's no escaping this time." Just as she was about to close her eyes and wait for what came next, a sharp metal object suddenly whistled through the air, grazing the man's face and leaving a long gash across his cheek. Then it embedded itself into the tree trunk behind him. Clang! The icy sound of metal striking would ring out. Startled, the man clutched his face and shouted palely, "Who are you? Who dares?" At that very moment, a figure swift as the wind flashed past the girl. The newcomer stood between the two sides and slowly spoke. "Naturally, someone you can't afford to provoke." The young man stood there with imposing bearing, his steady gaze leaving the group behind him stunned. The man wounded by the dart roared angrily, "How dare you? You dare stop the men of Luke Jia from taking someone? Are you tired of living?" Hearing that, the youth merely curled his lips into a faint smile. I was wondering who was acting so arrogantly. So it turns out to be the famous Luke Jia of Trannam. The moment he finished speaking, swish, a small stone shot through the air and struck the aggressive man right in the shoulder, making him go pale and scream, "Mother of, why is it always me who gets hurt every time?" As he spoke, he rolled onto the ground. The young man opposite him said coldly, "Go back and tell your masters in the clan that this young master is definitely saving this young lady." After saying that, he lightly pushed forward the sword in his hand. The cold gleam of steel made the three men in front of him too afraid to move. Seeing that none of them dared act, the youth shouted, "Why aren't you getting lost yet?" The other two hurriedly helped their companion and fled, not forgetting to leave behind a threat. "We will let you off for today. Just you wait." Once their figures disappeared completely, the girl behind him finally stammered, "Tich think." Her soft voice, as faint as a mosquito's buzz, made the youth turn around. Lowering her head, she continued, "Thank you, young master, for saving me. I will definitely repay this life-saving kindness." Before she could finish, his large hand suddenly grabbed hers. The sudden action made her look up in confusion. He quickly said, "No need to thank me. What's important now is this. Come with me." Hearing that, she asked in confusion, "Where are we going?" He turned to look at her, his bright eyes sparkling as he replied, "Of course, we're running away." Who knew how much time had passed? Amid ragged breathing, one hand braced itself against a tree trunk. I really can't run anymore." She spoke while clutching her chest and panting. The youth beside her also removed his face covering and let out a soft sigh. "We should be safe for now. After running this long, they probably won't catch up to us. Rest a bit." After speaking, he enthusiastically pulled out a small pouch from inside his robe, then took out a soft white steam bun and bit into it. Meanwhile, she sat under the tree. Seeing that scene, her stomach immediately growled. The sound rang out clearly, making her blush in embarrassment and instinctively cover her stomach. Suddenly, a snowy white bun was held out in front of her. "Here for you." Hearing that, the girl looked up at him in surprise. While chewing, he said, "After running this long, you must be hungry too. I still have one bun left. Here, eat it." As he spoke, he kept chewing away. She hesitated for a few seconds before reaching out to take it. Thank you." The moment she bit into it, tears unexpectedly rolled down her cheeks. The sight made the young man pause slightly. He wondered, why would such a young girl provoke the Trannam Luke Jia and even be hunted down? She quietly explained, "Because I am the unmarried bride of Luke Jia. I didn't want to marry the family head, so I ran away from the marriage. If I'm caught and taken back, I'll definitely be killed." Hearing that, the youth fell into thought. A bride? I haven't heard that Luke Jia was planning a wedding lately. After a long silence, she asked in return, "Why do we have to run just now?" He set his slingshot on the ground and slowly explained, "Well, actually the one I knocked out just now was because of the slingshot. My moves were all just for show. This martial art of mine is basically cat scratch kung fu." Hearing that, she widened her eyes in surprise. "Huh." He shrugged and continued, "So if they noticed something was off and came after us, we definitely wouldn't have been able to escape." After hearing that, she couldn't help bursting into laughter. "Ha ha, you're really interesting." The young man crossed his arms and confidently said, "My name is Luke." He paused briefly, then continued, "My name is Lai Tran. And you?" The girl smiled and replied, "My name is Mac Lam Tom." Suddenly he asked, "Where are you planning to go from here on?" Hearing that, she lowered her head slightly, her voice growing subdued. "I heard from my wet nurse that I was picked up in the Jiangnan region, in Ahang. I want to go there and find my family." Hearing that, Lai Tran eagerly suggested, "What a coincidence. I'm headed the same way. If you don't mind, let's travel together. It'll be more fun." Mac Lam Tom looked at him and smiled gently. At the same time, at the Tran Nam Luke Jia residence, a subordinate was kneeling as he reporting to Master. "The young master has run away from home again." The person opposite him merely instructed calmly, "Immediately send people to search all along the bustling, lively areas. Remember, under no circumstances is the young master to be harmed." The man accepted the order and bowed his head. Yes, this subordinate obeys. On a busy, bustling street, Lai Tran walked ahead like a guide, speaking cheerfully as he went. "There's a small town up ahead. We've been walking for so long. You must be hungry too, right? How about we find a place to rest and eat something before continuing?" Hearing that, Mac Lam Tom nodded in agreement. After entering the inn, he relaxed and said, "Finally, we can rest comfortably for a bit." While the person opposite stretched lazily in satisfaction, she looked around like a little deer, her eyes full of curiosity. Seeing that expression, he propped up his chin and asked with amusement, "This is your first time leaving home and traveling far, isn't it?" She answered honestly, "Oh my first time being away from home." Hearing that, he enthusiastically vowed, "Then just wait until we get to Jinling. There's an even more bustling and lively place waiting for us there. Waiter." He turned his head and called loudly, "Coming right up. What would the two guests like to order?" The waiter hurried over briskly. He lowered his head seriously and studied the menu before choosing. "Let me see. 1 jin of soy braised beef, 1 pot of top-grade Longjing tea, and stir-fry 1 dish of prosperity filled with gold and jade." "Oh, right. Do you have fresh fish here?" At the question, the waiter quickly replied, "Yes, we do. It was just caught from the river, still very fresh." Hearing that, he nodded eagerly. "Then add 1 more dish of West Lake vinegar fish." The waiter immediately replied cheerfully, "Certainly. Please wait a moment. We'll prepare it right away." After ordering, Lai Tran tilted his head and asked with a smile, "You're starving, aren't you, Lam Tam? Just wait a little longer. The food will be here soon." As he spoke, he gave her a gentle, considerate smile. That smile made her heart skip a beat. Her face flushed red with shyness as she stammered, "Oh, okay." But inwardly, she felt a little flustered. He suddenly started calling me so intimately. Then the person in front of her slowly spoke, "Lam Tom, forgive my boldness in asking this, but Luke Jia is the richest and most powerful family in Tran Nam. You were supposed to marry the master of Luke Jia, so why did you choose to run away?" Startled by the sudden question, she flinched. Then she fell into a long silence. After quite a while, Mac Lam Tom finally spoke softly, "Because I don't want to die like that in ignorance, nor do I want to live my whole life in fear and anxiety." Hearing that, the person opposite wiped the sweat from his forehead. "And no, that can't be. Maybe you've misunderstood. I've never heard any rumors about Luke Jia killing wives." At that moment, a string of memories surged in her mind. "Miss, be careful, hold it tight." That familiar voice rang out. Back then, Mac Lam Tom happily held a candied hawthorn stick, laughing as she ran along. In a sorrowful voice, she slowly recounted, "I grew up living in the side courtyard of Luke Jia. The wet nurse once told me she found me by the riverbank. All these years, Luke Jia has treated me very well. Although I lived in the side courtyard with the servants and had never stepped into the main residence or seen the family head. From childhood, I was given private tutors to teach me the qin, chess, calligraphy, and painting. The steward and the wet nurse both treated me like a young lady. If it hadn't been for the day I turned 17, when the wet nurse told me the truth, that Luke Jia raised me only so I could become the family head's concubine, would I have had to wait until the day I was killed to understand the truth?" At this, Lai Tran frowned slightly. "Your wet nurse, what exactly did she tell you?" In response to the question, she slowly said, "The head of Luke Jia is a cruel man. They say he was born suspicious, always doubting that the people around him will betray him. Killing wives, killing children, slaughtering subordinates. Those are all commonplace to him. The wet nurse said that every month, many corpses are carried out from the main residence. After hearing that, the person in front of her looked stunned. I think all of that is just baseless rumor. It can't be trusted. I wanted the Jianghu for many years and have heard of that head of Luke Jia before. He's said to be a talented and outstanding young man. Before he could finish, she slammed the table and shouted, "Impossible. Those are all things my wet nurse told me. How could she possibly lie to me?" My wet nurse risked her life to tell me the truth, all so I could escape. She didn't hesitate to sacrifice her own life. Her voice trembled, then her expression changed abruptly as if a painting had suddenly darkened. I was imprisoned in that gilded cage from the moment I was born. I don't want to die meaninglessly, and I don't want to marry that cold-blooded monster, so I chose to run away. Those words struck his chest like blades. Li Jiang Mumut Sopti Heavens. Just what kind of image has Big Brother created for me in other people's eyes? Just then, the waiter approached carrying steaming hot dishes. "Honored guests, your food is here." Hearing that, Lai Tran happily picked up his chopsticks. "All right, don't think about those upsetting things for now. Let's eat first." The person opposite him froze slightly. "Huh? Oh, okay, thank you." But inwardly she thought, Lai Tran really is such a warm and gentle person. Suddenly, a hand placed food into her bowl. "Lamb Tom, try this vinegar fish." Hearing that, she obediently picked it up and put it in her mouth. He immediately asked, "So, is it good?" She nodded honestly and replied, "It's delicious." After a while, the table full of dishes had been completely wiped clean. He set down his chopsticks, rubbed his full belly, and let out a small burp. I'm stuffed. Can't eat another bite." "Waiter, the bill." Hearing that, the waiter hurried over. "Have the two honored guests finished eating? The total is 3 silver ingots." At that moment, he turned to the person across from him. "Lam Tom, I accidentally lost my travel money. Can you cover it for now? Once we get a Lang Ton, I'll find a way to earn travel money for both of us." Hearing that, Mac Lam Tam looked blankly at him and asked Silver, "What is that?" The atmosphere in the inn suddenly sank into a frightening silence, and then he turned pale and exclaimed. After overhearing their conversation, the waiter looked left and right. "You two, who's paying?" Lai Trana's expression instantly became incredibly ugly. A few seconds later, a roar rang out, "Grab them. Don't let them run. How dare they dine and dash on my turf? Go after them." On the street at that moment, a married couple carrying a child turned to look. Meanwhile, Lai Tran grabbed Mac Lam Tom's hand and shouted, make way, help!" The lady's eyes widened a little in surprise, but then he immediately turned into a narrow alley. "Lam Tom, in here!" Behind them, people kept shouting, "Stop right there. Hey!" Suddenly, after looking around, one person called out, "Boss, they've run off." Hearing that, the leader couldn't help cursing. "Damn it, they were just here a second ago. Where they run off to? Split up and find them for me. To think they dare dine and dash in my territory. They've got a death wish." In the deserted alley, the two of them were now hiding together inside a small shack. The sound of heavy breathing kept ringing out. He hurriedly covered her mouth with his hand and carefully looked outside. It sounds like the footsteps have gone farther away. But then the atmosphere suddenly turned awkwardly intimate. Her voice sounded flustered as she said, "You lecher, take your hand off me right now." The person opposite her panicked no less. I'm letting go. Don't get worked up." Suddenly, smack! A crisp slap rang out, followed by a pained cry. "Ow!" Now the two of them were squatting by the roadside. Resting her chin on her hand, she softly asked, "Why were they chasing us just now?" Hearing that, the person beside her, still bearing a bright red handprint on his face, fell speechless. Then, turning pale, he explained, "Because we ate without paying." At that, Mac Lam Tom lifted her head blankly. "Money? What exactly is that? I heard people mentioning it on the road, too." The person opposite her looked so helpless he nearly coughed up blood. "You really don't even know what money is?" Seeing Lai Tran like that, her expression dimmed. "Yes, I'm sorry. I was raised from childhood in a place where I didn't really understand much about how people deal with one another in the world. I must have caused you a lot of trouble." Seeing the person beside him look so aggrieved, she was almost about to cry. He quickly comforted her. No, that's not it. You shouldn't be upset. If that's the case." Suddenly, he snapped his fingers to get her attention. "Then let me teach you a bit of common knowledge. When traveling to Jianghu, you have to be properly prepared. First, the thing the waiter asked us to hand over just now is called money. In other words, when traveling to Jianghu, the universal thing you use is money. If we eat, then we must pay the innkeeper the corresponding amount for the meal. Likewise, if we stay somewhere, we also have to pay the lodging fee. And when traveling, we must pay station fees or carriage fares. After hearing his explanation, she seemed to understand. But we don't have any money. The person in front of her looked as though he wanted to smash his head into a wall as he muttered, "We really are in a bad spot." Seeing that, she suddenly asked, "Then why didn't you bring money when you came out?" He looked at the person beside him and slowly explained, I lost my travel money while running just now." But inwardly, he kept complaining, "It's all because Big Brother sent people to block the roads along the way. That made me lose all the silver I brought." Hearing that, she suddenly grew worried. "Doesn't that mean we'll starve to death on the road?" Seeing the anxiety on her face, he quickly reassured her, "No need to panic. Up ahead is the most prosperous district in all of Langton. Once we get into the city, we'll naturally find a way to manage." After that, the two of them arrived at Jinling City. At that moment, a hesitant voice sounded out. So many people. Hearing that, the person beside her said calmly, "Of course. This is the busiest district in the whole city. In recent years, even the Hu people from the icy western regions have come here to do business. It's very lively. Come on, let's go into the city and have a look." As he spoke, Tran hurriedly pulled her along. That action made the other party blush bright red, and she cried out, "Let go! Don't you know men and women should not touch casually?" That was followed by a fateful smack. The person in front took another slap and stammered in panic, "I got carried away and forgot." 3 hours later, he collapsed heavily onto the ground, his face pale as he kept muttering, "No, I can't do this anymore. I am starving. Merchants really are black-hearted. They only gave me 3 taels of silver. Who knows when we'll ever scrape together enough travel money at this rate." Beside him, the girl puffed out her cheeks, distracted, though her hands were still playing with a blade of grass. At that moment, he shouted, "Outrageous! Even the servants in my household get at least 1 tael of silver a month. Truly, when a tiger falls to the plains, even dogs dare sneer at it. How can this make any sense?" Over on Mac Lam Tom's side, she had already woven a little grass rabbit. Just then, a mother and child walked over. "Miss, how much is this?" Not far away, he was still muttering angrily, "No, I have to think of some way to quickly earn enough travel money. But what exactly can make money fast?" Suddenly, a hand poked him in the back. Startled, he hurriedly turned around. A fair hand held out a copper coin as she asked uncertainly, "Is this money?" The moment he saw it, he was shocked. Where did you get that?" Flustered, she explained, "I was just sitting over there weaving a rabbit out of grass. An older woman took the rabbit and G gave me this." Suddenly, a large hand grabbed hers, and he said excitedly, "Lam Tom, you're a genius. I thought of a way for us to make money fast." Hearing that, she allowed a confused not understanding a thing. Then the two of them threw themselves into doing business. Don't miss it as you pass by. Handmade woven rabbits, 2 copper coins each, or 3 for 5. No cheating here. Lai Tran held up a flag and called out energetically, "Little one, want to buy a grass rabbit?" But at the same time, the person behind him was nervous and worried the whole time. Suddenly, a small child rushed over, startling Mac Lam Tom badly. "Wait a moment." But the child said excitedly, "Big sister, I want a rabbit too." On his side, he skillfully handed one over and gently reminded him, "Once you take it, you can't bear to put it down again." Just then his voice rang out, "Lam Tom." A big hand passed over a few coins as he carefully instructed her, "Keep the money from our sales safe. Once we are more, we'll go buy buns to eat." Hearing those words, she froze for a moment, not quite able to keep up. But she quickly came back to herself and answered with a blush. After that, a little girl happily took her grass rabbit. "Thank you, big brother." Hearing that, he rubbed the child's head and praised her gently, "Good girl." Mac Lam Tom was not idle either and hurriedly stepped forward to sell more. "Thank you, ma'am." In the blink of an eye, he waved to the last customer. "Take care, madam. Please come again next time." Then he happily looked at his companion as if showing off. "Lam Tom, I just sold 3 more." She said shyly, "I just sold 1 too." At that moment, he wiped his sweat and sighed tiredly, "Wow, I'm exhausted. We finally sold them all." Behind him, she was still holding a grass rabbit, full of excitement, when a voice called out, "Lam Tom, how much did we earn today?" Hearing Lai Tran ask, she held out a handful of copper coins and answered eagerly, "A lot." Hearing that, he raised his hand and said spiritedly, "Great. At this rate, in less than 3 days we'll have enough travel money to set out." Then he suddenly declared boldly, "All right, since all the grass rabbits are sold out today, let's go stroll around the city a bit. Let's go." Hearing that, Mac Lam Tom hurried after him. In Jinling City, the atmosphere was noisy and bustling. Her eyes sparkled as she looked at the beautiful little toys. Wow. The person beside her asked in confusion. That's a pellet drum. Didn't you ever play with one when you were little? She answered at once. Never. Ever since I was young, my nanny and tutors told me that girls shouldn't waste time. I had to master music, chess, calligraphy, and painting to marry into a good family. As she spoke, she sighed gloomily. Hearing that, he snorted irritably. A bunch of old fogies, just like my elder brother. So boring. Suddenly, a hand pointed in another direction. It looks like there's something fun over there. Let's go take a look. He immediately changed his mood. Come on, let's go see. Suddenly, something caught her attention. Huh, over there. That's Lingi Pavilion. Young women dressed in exquisitely colorful clothes filled the scene. The sight struck straight into Mac Lam Tom's heart. Those clothes. Then she couldn't help saying, "They're so beautiful." The person beside her noticed and let out a small his gaze turning in that direction as well. After a while, a cry rang out. What? Li Jiang Sao De in shock. Only 10 copper coins left. Then he hurriedly asked her, "El Lam Tom, are you sure we really only have 10 copper coins left?" When asked, she answered innocently, We bought the pellet drum just now, and powder and rouge, and a sword, and we ate buns and candied hawthorn." After hearing that, he stiffly asked the innkeeper inside, "Boss, can the lodging fee be reduced a little?" Standing next to him, she also put on a pitiful expression. "Please?" The man smiled, but was furious inside. After a moment of silence, he shouted, Go, go, go. You don't even have money and still want to stay here? There's a ruined temple south of the city, so go there. What rotten luck." After driving them off, he slammed the door shut. The two of them stood there dumbstruck. After a moment, he sighed and said, "It's fine. Don't be discouraged. Didn't the innkeeper say there was a place to stay south of the city? Let's go take a look while it's not dark yet. We can also stroll around the east side of the city a bit. Come on, tomorrow, once we are more." Seeing how optimistic the person before her was, she couldn't help thinking to herself, Lai Tran really is such an optimistic and gentle person. If I had to marry someone so gentle, that would be nice. But then she suddenly pinched her own face and hurriedly chased the thought away. Oh, what am I thinking? That's far too improper. That night, the two of them arrived at the abandoned temple the innkeeper had mentioned. Looking at the dilapidated scene, Lai Tran stammered a little. "Tish, this really is a ruined temple." The fire crackled softly. The two sat next to each other as the atmosphere suddenly turned strangely silent. At that moment, he spoke. "Right, Lam Tom, I bought you a gift." Hearing that, she went blank for a moment. "This?" Her eyes wavered as she asked, "Is this for me?" Looking at the outfit in her hands, she still could hardly believe it. The person opposite her quickly urged, "Clothes from Lingi Pavilion. I went to buy them while you were eating wontons. Hurry and go inside to change and see if they fit." Outside, he waited silently. Suddenly, a voice sounded out. I've changed." Hearing that, Lai Tran turned to look. But his eyes instantly lit up in surprise. Mac Lam Tom said shyly, "WL?" At that moment, she asked bashfully, "Is it pretty? Do I look nice?" Both of them suddenly fell into an awkward silence. What they feared most was the sudden stillness growing so heavy it became suffocating. "I should say something. Your friend's taste is good." Her words scattered apart, leaving her stammering. Lai Tran quickly turned away, his face flushed, and answered, "You look very beautiful." Receiving his praise, she also said softly and shyly, Thank you." In the quiet stillness of the night, she later changed out of that outfit and folded it neatly. Seeing that, the person beside her asked, "Why not wear it directly?" When asked, she only explained slowly in a gentle voice, "Such beautiful clothes. I think I'll wear them when I find my family." At that, he fell silent, and after a few moments of quiet, he finally asked in a slightly hoarse voice, "Being with your family, is that happier than wandering the world together with someone else?" Hearing that, she smiled naturally and answered him, "Later, I'll stay together with my father and mother, and we'll never be separated again." Those words threw his thoughts into turmoil. Is home really something worth longing for that much? Then he slowly closed his eyes, but suddenly the person beside him spoke. "Actually, I'm not even sure whether my parents will accept me or not. But after leaving the Luke family, other than searching for my own family, I probably have nowhere else to go." But only silence filled the space in response. This made her think in confusion. Why did it suddenly get so quiet? At that moment, Mac Lam Tom slowly raised her head. Then she burst into cheerful laughter. So he fell asleep. 3 days later, a pouch of silver was held out, and he said excitedly, "This should be enough for us to use on the road." Lam Tum. Hearing him, she turned to look. At that moment, he carefully instructed her, "Stay here and don't wander around. I'll go buy some provisions for the road." After that, Lai Tran hurried off. "Auntie, I'd like 8 meat buns, thank you." After receiving the buns, he cheerfully left. But suddenly, an alarm sounded in his mind. Something's wrong. Why does this feel so strange? His gaze immediately turned cautious. We're being followed. This is bad. I forgot that Jinling is one of the Luke family's main spheres of activity. We've been brazenly selling things in the marketplace these past few days. We must have been noticed by my elder brother's men. At that same time, not far away, a shadow was secretly observing. Meanwhile, a voice rang out. Miss, please wait. I can see your bones are extraordinary. You're clearly a martial arts prodigy. Would you like this secret manual? Buy one and get 5 free right now. A man had come over to peddle his wares. Hearing that, she actually pondered it seriously for a moment. This is really amazing. But before she could finish, a hand grabbed her and pulled her away. Lamtam, hoodie. That sudden action left her standing there blankly. Elsewhere, hurried footsteps thudded and a figure said in alarm. Where are they? Another person came closer. We've lost them. Hearing that, the first man immediately ordered, contact the master at once. I'll gather the people in the city and search carefully. In such a short time, they can't have gone far. At the same moment, behind a wall, a figure was hiding cautiously. After observing for a while, he spoke in a worried voice. We've been discovered by the Luke family. Hearing that, the person beside him began trembling in fear. But the one in front frowned and said, we can't go to the carriage either. The Luke family has definitely sent people to lie in wait there for us. A large part of the Luke family's business is in Jinling. We must have been spotted by their informants while selling things in the market. Hearing those words, Mac Lam Tom's face turned ugly and she cried out, what? But we already paid the carriage driver just now. Then what are we supposed to do now? The more she spoke, the more panicked she became. But the person in front of her quickly soothed her. Don't panic. Right now, the whole city is definitely full of people sent by the Luke family to find us. We absolutely can't leave during the day. We can only escape under cover of darkness. Hearing that, she nodded in agreement. All right. After coming up with a plan, Lai Tran became optimistic again and started walking. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Let's change clothes first so we don't attract attention. But the person behind him sank into gloom and self-reproach. It's all because of me. I've even dragged Lai Tran into being hunted down with me. But when she turned to look at him, he was also inwardly lamenting, as expected of my elder brother. He guessed from the start that I would come to Jinling and had people waiting in advance. At that thought, an image appeared in his mind of a little demon holding a trident and chasing after him, cackling wickedly. With tears nearly falling, he wailed, I only want to roam the Jianghu. Elder brother, please let me go. At night, sky lanterns slowly rose into the air, creating a hazy scene. At the east gate of Jinling City, a carriage had long been waiting. At that moment, a soldier stepped out and shouted loudly, whoever's behind, if you're not leaving, the city gate is about to close. Move it, all of you. At the same time, a hurried voice answered, coming. Lai Tran quickly stepped forward. Sir, please wait. We need to go out. Suddenly, a shout came from behind. Hey, wait. Both of them stiffened instantly in tension. Seeing this, the guard could not help asking, why are the two of you dressed so strangely? Where are you leaving the city for? Take off your bamboo hats and let me see. As he spoke, he walked toward them. At that moment, her whole body seemed petrified, and the sound of her breathing grew ragged. Suddenly, Lai Tran stepped in front of her and held out a bit of silver with both hands. Yes, sir, this is my younger sister. She caught a chill and can't be exposed to the wind. I beg you, sir, please show mercy and let us leave the city. This little bit of money is a token of respect. At the same time, she hurriedly stepped back. The guard's eyes lit up at the sight of the money. Oh, so the boy needs to travel? Go on then. Today, this young master will open the way for you. Outside, at the edge of the woods, the sound of panting rang out without pause as two figures ran with all their strength. At that moment, Mac Lam Tam leaned against a tree, standing not far away. He hurriedly said, no, let's rest for a bit. Mac Lam Tam took off her hat and sighed in exhaustion. Are we safe now? After calming himself, the person opposite her said seriously, only for now. We need to leave this place as soon as possible. I've already arranged for a carriage outside the city to pick us up. Let's hurry. Meanwhile, a coquettish young woman was saying, have another drink, my lord. Suddenly, a subordinate appeared. Master, we found the young master's whereabouts. Hearing that, the other man cried out in surprise, oh, where did you find him? The subordinate quickly replied, in Jinling City. The young master is with a woman. Tonight, they quietly left the city. Should we make a move? Hearing that, the man before him said coldly, have Huang Quan and Du Xie follow them as well. Start preparing. The subordinate hurriedly replied, yes. As soon as the man left, his smile turned strange, and he thought to himself, Luke Lai Tran, your day of death has come. Beneath the dim moonlight, A shout echoed through the forest. What did you say? The driver said apologetically in confusion. I'm truly sorry. You too. We're about to leave Jinling's territory, and I really can't go any farther. Hearing that, Lai Tran grew anxious. This place is barren wilderness. How are the two of us supposed to go on from here? Are we supposed to sleep out in the open? While he was tense, Mac Lam Tom was instead looking around with excited curiosity. The driver replied awkwardly, there's a small town not far ahead. The two of you can stay there for the night. Tomorrow, you can hire another carriage in town and continue on. I'm really sorry, but my wife made me promise I had to be home before dark, or else I'll be kneeling on the washboard. But just then, a voice cut him off. Enough. I can't be bothered arguing with you. If that's the case, then go. Having been given permission, the driver rejoiced. Thank you, sir, for understanding. This humble one is deeply grateful. As soon as he finished speaking, he whipped the carriage around and sped off like the wind. Seeing this, Lai Tran could not help grumbling irritably. What kind of sense is there in throwing your passengers into the wilderness? Completely unreliable. Lam Tom, while it's not dark yet, let's hurry. But then his eyes widened in surprise. Behind him, she was playing with the little fireflies. Wow. But when he sensed her gaze on him, he suddenly started, Over here, there's so many glowing insects. Come look. The scene just now had made him blush, and he quickly replied, Yes, I'm coming right away. Over here, her soft hand brushed against the shrubs, and at once, tiny lights began flickering into view. She said excitedly, There are lots more here too. Brother Lai Tran, look. Seeing how happy she was, he smiled gently as well. Mak lam tâm kep keeping with Dao Lai. Wow, there's so many over here too. There are some here as well. But after 2 hours, Lai Tran's face had turned pale. Snapping a branch in anger, he said, Damn it, we were tricked. We've already walked 10 li, and we haven't even seen a single house, let alone a town. She asked worriedly, Are we going to have to stay here tonight? Hearing that, he replied softly, No. This place is very far from Ling City. Very few people live here, and I'm afraid there are plenty of snakes and wild beasts. Sleeping out in the open would definitely be dangerous. Hearing this, she hesitated. Then what do we do? But suddenly her eyes lit up, and she thought, over there, that's... Then she hurriedly called out, Lai Tran, there seems to be a house over there. Seeing where she pointed, he cried out excitedly, It really does seem like it. Let's go take a look. Hearing that, the person behind him answered eagerly, Okay. Inside the house, a young woman was sitting outside. Then a voice rang out, Excuse us, we've come from Jinling, and since it's getting late, we'd like to ask to stay here for the night. Would that be convenient? Hearing this, the woman replied generously, Of course. Travelers have come from afar. Inside, a figure brought over cups of water. Miss, have some tea. We just happened to catch a rabbit today, so I'll go cook now. Hearing that, the person beside her quickly replied, No need, we have food with us. The woman smiled and said, There are few people in this area, and we rarely get visitors. Meeting you is fate. Please don't stand on ceremony. I'll go cook first. You two have some water and rest for now. Hearing that, they couldn't very well refuse, so he said, Then we'll trouble you. After the woman left, Mac Lam Tom sprawled across the table and said excitedly, Wow, I thought we'd have to sleep outdoors, but I didn't expect we'd be able to stay at someone else's house. The person beside her quickly replied, We were lucky to meet good people. But at that very moment, in the kitchen, the woman slowly sprinkled white powder into the food. Outside, a voice sighed, There really are still a lot of good people. Nearby, a horse being led by the reins let out a sound, and in a shadowed corner, a masked man silently observed. At the same time, someone hurried over. Sir, as instructed, I let those two get off the carriage deep in the desolate forest south of the city. The carriage driver quickly reported, and the man opposite him smiled with smug satisfaction. You did very well. Here, this is your reward. The moment he received the shining silver, the other man said excitedly, Oh, thank you, sir. Then if there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first. Hearing that, he merely waved dismissively. Go on. The carriage driver grinned brightly and replied, Yes. If there's ever another good job like this, sir, you must remember me. I wouldn't refuse, even if it cost me my life. Hearing that, the man opposite him slowly drew his sword and said coldly, Oh, naturally. Then he watched the figure in front of him walk away. As the other man walked, he thought to himself smugly, I never thought I'd run into such a good thing. I won't have to worry about my drinking money for the next half year. Suddenly, the sound of a weapon slicing through the air rang out. Slash! The carriage driver's face froze in shock, and a mouthful of bright red blood spilled from his lips. A cold voice slowly said, You can't blame me for this. the person behind him drove the sword even deeper into his body. After finishing him off, the masked man said evenly, "My master gave the order. Anyone unrelated who knows about this is not to be left alive." The man sprawled on the ground struggled to speak. You, but he could only watch helplessly as the other man walked away. The sound of footsteps in the night echoed steadily. At that moment, rain suddenly began to pour from the sky. Tran looked outside in confusion. Strange. It was fine just a moment ago. Why is it raining all of a sudden? Then a voice said, "The weather in the mountains changes easily. The food is ready. Guests, please eat plenty." Hearing this, the two of them immediately forgot about the buns they had bought during the day, their eyes fixed eagerly on the steaming dishes on the table. It looked delicious. He hurriedly said, "Thank you so much." Beside him, Lam Tom also said, "Big sister, you should eat with us too." But standing outside the doorway, the woman only smiled and said, "My husband and I already ate in the kitchen. Please don't be polite. People rarely come to this house, so don't stand on ceremony. Eat while it's hot." Hearing that, the two inside couldn't help exclaiming, "Wow." Then a hand slowly reached forward with chopsticks. "Then I'll eat first." The person opposite said excitedly, "I'll start too." But just as he opened his mouth, his eyes narrowed in suspicion. At the same moment, seeing that the person in front of him was about to eat too, he quickly stopped her. "Wait." Ignoring her confusion, he hurriedly picked up the food and lifted the bowl to smell it. Realization struck him at once. "As I thought, it's heartbreak grass." Then he urged quickly, "Lam Tom, we have to go." Hearing that, she said blankly, "Go?" At this, Tran frowned warily and explained, "This dish has definitely been laced with heartbreak grass. It's an extremely poisonous herb with violent effects. Anyone who eats it will die in a very short time. Heartbreak grass itself carries a faint rotten stench. People who use it usually add a second ingredient to conceal that smell, but when the two are mixed, it instead creates a distinctive odor. That smell is the sign of heartbreak grass." Hearing that, she froze. "What?" But he immediately seized her hand. There is definitely something wrong with his family. While they still haven't noticed, let's slip out through the back door. Suddenly another voice rang out mockingly. Well now, the little miss knows quite a lot. It turned out the woman had been watching them for who knew how long. Hearing the voice, he turned around. The man beside her, carrying a large blade on his shoulder, said calmly, "Since we've already been found out, it seems there'll be no avoiding bloodshed tonight." At the same time, the woman beside him said viciously, "Such a pretty little girl. How about sister my sends you to the underworld first?" Then she pulled out a small knife and slashed fiercely forward. Lam Tom was caught off guard by the attack. The person beside her shouted at once, "Lam Tom," but blood had already sprayed everywhere. Blood dripped down from an arm drop by drop. Tran was trembling with rage. The sound of rapid, ragged breathing filled the air. He had stepped in front of Lam Tom and taken a blade for her. The person behind him was still too shocked to react. Tran, the person opposite, slowly said, "Just who are you people?" Blood kept dripping onto the cold ground. The woman, now holding another weapon, said arrogantly, "Obviously, we're the ones here to take your lives." Hearing that, she clutched him anxiously. "Brother Tran, you're hurt." Suddenly, he turned his head. "Lam Tum." Then, forcing a bitter smile, he instructed softly, "In a moment, I'll find a way to hold these two back. Use the chance to get out of here." Hearing that, it felt as if the sky had collapsed over her head. "What? No, I'm not going. I don't want to leave you behind and run for my life alone. How could I possibly do something like that?" As she spoke, tears welled up and began to fall. Suddenly, a large hand gently stroked her in comfort. "Silly girl, don't worry." His hand slowly gripped the knife hilt, pain written across his face. Then he yanked it out in one decisive motion and threw it hard to the ground. "Since I saved you, then I will do everything in my power to protect you and keep you safe." Hearing that, the person behind him looked stunned. Suddenly, a frightening slicing sound rang out. The man opposite them said strangely, "Don't even think that either of you is leaving here alive tonight." Seeing this, he quickly shoved the person behind him away. "Be careful." Caught off guard by the push, she cried out in alarm. At the same time, Tran hastily drew his sword and moved to block the opponent. But the man's strength was too great, forcing him to skid backward. Inwardly, he thought, such deep internal energy. This person's martial arts are definitely above mine, it seems. A scream suddenly rang out, and he quickly looked toward the sound. "Lam Tum." The woman had closed in on her without him noticing. Her voice dripped with temptation. "Don't worry, my sword is very fast. You won't feel much pain." Then she struck. The sight made him panic. Not good. With a burst of strength, he knocked the man in front of him away and shouted, "Lam Tom, move." Thud. The sound of a blade piercing flesh was horrifying. Blood spattered across her pale face, and she stared blankly at the hand that had blocked the sword for her. Bright red blood dripped continuously. Lytran's face was deathly pale from blood loss, and his breathing grew heavier. Seeing that, the woman withdrew her sword and said smugly, My, to die beneath a peony is a romantic death, even as a ghost. Leave this brat to me." Seeing this, Lytran couldn't help but panic. This is bad. His left hand still has. At that moment, the short sword slashed up, leaving a stinging cut across Lytran's face. But the other party only laughed mockingly, then quickly retreated and flung a volley of sharp darts forward. The woman opposite frowned and shouted, "Hidden weapons. Damn it, we can't dodge them." The man beside her, Huang Quan, hurriedly threw his arms around her. Thud! The darts sank viciously into his body. At the same time, a voice cried out, "Brother Huang Quan, be careful. You little bastard, today I will cut you to pieces." His heavy body then collapsed to the ground in pain. Lytran was gasping nonstop now and cursed under his breath. Damn it, the medicine is taking effect. I really can't hold on anymore. Behind him, Mac Lam Tom cried out in fear. Lytran, stop fighting. The woman sneered. What touching devotion. Little sister, don't worry. I'll send your lover on his way first. Hearing that, Mac Lam Tam rushed over and threw her arms around the woman's body, shouting no. Restrained like that, the woman snapped angrily. "You little wretch, let go of me." Then she seized Mac Lam Tom by the hair and yanked hard, but the girl still said firmly, "I won't let go. Even if I die, I won't let go." But just seconds later, she was flung hard onto the ground. The person opposite frowned and said, "What a fool who doesn't know the difference between life and death." The man beside her, weapon on his shoulder, frowned and said, Junior sister, stop wasting words on them. Just take their heads and bring them back to report." But suddenly his face turned pale and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Cough. His body dropped to one knee. The sight made the person beside him panic. Brother Huang Quan. But he only stared at the person in front of him. The hidden weapons were poisoned. Outside, under the dark sky, only the full moon shone down. Suddenly, a furious scream rang out. "You bastard, I want to kill you." Then she quickly supported the person beside her. Brother Huang Quan. Meanwhile, Lytran struggled to support his own body. At that moment, she looked at the two opposite her and said, "First, we need to find a place nearby to cure your poison. Lin Sun is close to here. With him keeping watch, those two won't get away. Once your poison is cured, it won't be too late to deal with them." Lytran then said with difficulty, "They've gone." Mac Lam Tom's body gave out as well, and she collapsed. The sight made the person behind her panic. "Lam Tum." She looked at the person in front of her and said fearfully, "Lytran, Sobi, that was so terrifying. That blade was even longer than Butcher Lin's pig-killing knife back in the kitchen." Her spirit finally collapsed completely. I thought. Then she suddenly threw herself into his arms. "I thought we were going to die here today." At the same time, a sharp pain shot straight to his brain, making him think to himself, "It hurts." Then he forced himself to say, "Silly girl, I told you to run, and yet you stayed behind and dragged me down. I already said it. Since I saved you, I'll do everything I can to protect you and keep you safe." As he spoke, he looked straight into her eyes. Suddenly she remembered. Your hand is bleeding so much." As she spoke, she lifted the hand that had blocked the sword for her with both of hers. Seeing this, the person in front of her only said lightly, "It's nothing. The most important thing now is to leave this place immediately." The poison in the food was heartbreak grass, but after being diluted and then smeared onto the hidden weapons, the toxicity must have weakened quite a bit. Once those two cure the poison and come back, we won't have any way to escape. Then the two of them immediately rushed into the forest. The sound of panting filled the air. Lytran didn't forget to remind her, "Lam Tom, watch your step." The rain was still pattering down. Suddenly the person in front stumbled, and the sight made Mac Lam Tom panic. "Li Jiang." But the person opposite clutched his body in pain and thought to himself, as expected, "I was poisoned. This time it's bad." Then he hurriedly said, "Lam Dum." Hearing him call, she jolted. Suddenly, the sky opened into a heavy downpour. She quickly crouched down, and he slowly explained, "Just now, while those two weren't paying attention, I soaked the hidden weapons in the heartbreak grass from the food. The poison must have gone into my wound through my hand as well. It's only a small amount, so it won't be life-threatening. But from here on, I'll have to rely on you." At that point, he lost consciousness. His body swayed and pitched forward. Seeing this, the person beside him quickly caught him. "Li Jiang, Li Jiang." Her panic cries rang out again and again. At that moment, droplets slid from the leaves with a soft pattering sound, and his hazy eyes gradually sensed a faint light. And then where am I? When he finally saw clearly, he found himself in a crude, damp cave. Lai Tran slowly opened his eyes as well, his mind still groggy. A cave? He slowly sat up when suddenly a sharp pain struck him. His injured hand had been used too much, and a silent cry rose in his heart. It hurts, but also helped him remember what had happened earlier. Right, where's Lam Tom? He frowned and murmured, could it be those two got her? Before he could finish, a hand gently parted the leaves. Mac Lam Tom returned from outside. The moment she saw that he was awake, she lit up in surprise and joy. Li Jiang, you're awake. Then she even dropped the basket in her hand and hurried over to his side. Don't move your hand. You're still injured. Let me see. Hearing that, the person in front of her obediently held out his hand. After checking it, she let out a soft sigh of relief. Phew. Thankfully, the wound hasn't split open any further. Seeing this, he asked in confusion, How do we get here? At his question, she slowly explained from beside him, last night you fainted. I dragged you along those winding mountain paths, and it took a long time before I finally found this cave to shelter in. But he was still full of doubts. The poison in my body. Hearing that, she sighed helplessly. At the time, you were unconscious, and we were surrounded by nothing but barren mountains and forest. There was no way to find a doctor. Your hand had been poisoned by heartbreak grass, and patches of it had already started turning black and rotting. I was afraid you wouldn't be able to hold on much longer. So as soon as I found the cave, I hurried off to look for herbs to counter the poison. But whether it can cure it completely or not, I don't know either. Hearing this, Lai Tran looked at his hand in surprise. You know medicine? At that, the person before him stammered blankly. I've never studied it before. It's just, when I was little, I was always in the Luke family's inner courtyard. One day, after finishing my needlework lessons, a young boy climbed over the wall from outside. He happened to fall right in front of me. Seeing how bored I was, that boy played with me and told me all sorts of interesting stories about the outside world. When he left, he gave me a copy of a herbal compendium. After that, whenever I had free time, I would take it out and read it. Over time, I ended up remembering 70 or 80% of its contents. It's just that boy never came again after that day. Yesterday, when you were poisoned and unconscious, in my panic, I tried the detox methods in the book. I didn't even know whether they'd work. But now it looks like they probably did. With that, she broke into a sincere, delighted smile. That sight made the person opposite her flush red. Inwardly, he thought, so cute. Thump, thump. His hand moved to his chest. His heart was pounding too fast. Ow. His face immediately twisted in discomfort. Sang tat, mak lam tum panik. Idiot, don't touch there. Then she quickly stood up. Your chest wound still hasn't been bandaged. If the wound is left like this, it'll stick to your clothes. You wouldn't wake up no matter what, so I didn't dare go too far. Last night, after treating the wound on your hand, I just slept carelessly for a bit. As she spoke, she hurriedly pounded the medicine. Hearing that, the man behind her blushed so hard his face burned. But before he could finish, she cut him off. It wasn't until daylight today that I dared go out to find some cloth and bandages to bring back. At that moment, he gave a soft groan. Suddenly, she remembered something. Right, Dino? That carriage driver last night really did point us in the wrong direction. This morning, I walked a few miles the other way and found a small town. But by then, Lai Tran had already taken off his clothes, exposing the still bloody wounds and startling her badly. Mac Lam Tam shot to her feet and said angrily, Humph, that carriage driver was truly too much. I think he clearly had ulterior motives. At the same time, Lai Tran gritted out from behind her, Ow, ow, ow. Hearing that, the person opposite turned around. You agreed to, right? But then her eyes widened. Hearing her scream, Lai Tran looked up blankly. Oof. Then her stammering voice rang out. Why you? But the man opposite her still looked confused. What? You shameless rogue. How can you bare your chest in front of a girl like this? Where's your sense of propriety? Then she hurled the bowl of mashed medicine straight ahead. It smacked directly into his head. He toppled backward at once. Ow, but you said you were going to bandage my wound. How else was I supposed to do it without taking my clothes off? I'm innocent here. He protested aggrievedly. After a moment, her worried voice sounded out. Hey, are you ready? I'm starting now, okay? She was so nervous her eyes were squeezed shut, both hands clutching the strip of cloth. That scene left the man in front of her dumbfounded. Her quiet sighs kept escaping as she quickly and carefully wrapped the wound for him with the cloth. Her hands kept circling around him a few more times. After a while, she asked hesitantly, Is it done? But when no answer came, she cracked one eye open to peek. How did it end up like this? Her eyes went blank. Lai Tran had both his arms wrapped up by her, and with a pale face he said, I don't feel so good. Only then did Mac Lamb Tom panic. I'll undo it right away. Hey, don't die on me. After redoing it once more, she squinted nervously and asked, how about this time? But not only was he no better, he had somehow been given an extra sling around his neck. He was so helpless he couldn't even speak. Seeing that, she cried out again. This time she practically turned Lai Tran into a mummy face, repeating the process over and over. At last she gave up and shouted, blushing, forget it. Look, if you're gonna look, then look. Anyway, Nanny isn't here to see it. Saving your life is more important right now. Then her hands quickly dipped into the medicine. Looking at him, she said softly, bear with the pain a little. I'm going to apply the medicine now. But faced with those firm chest muscles, she couldn't help blushing, her breathing gradually growing hurried. Even he, the one being bandaged, felt embarrassed at the sight and hurriedly looked away. Why you? Go ahead and apply it. When the cloth touched a bit of blood, the person before him suddenly asked, does it hurt? Hearing that, he answered awkwardly no. But inwardly, he wanted the ground to swallow him whole. Being looked at like this is so embarrassing. After a while, she looked up and said excitedly, all right, lie down properly and rest. These clothes are torn and stained with blood. I'll wash him in them, then help you put them back on. Hearing that, he obediently laid down on the pile of straw, his gaze drifting not far away. There, Mac Lamb Tom was carefully sewing each stitch. He couldn't help wondering, just now, when it all started, my heart wouldn't stop pounding. Could this be what Big Brother once called falling for someone? Then suddenly he laughed. Li Jiang spoke the Tao. Hearing his laughter, Mac Lamb Tom turned to look at him, her face innocent and full of confusion. Seeing that, he found it even harder to stop laughing and said, since you were strictly bound by family rules from childhood, I thought you'd think I was some worthless degenerate. Hearing that, she immediately protested, that's not true. Nanny always said I was mischievous since I was little. I've never really obeyed the family rules all that well. I think if there's something you truly like doing, then you should definitely keep doing it. Don't mind what other people say. After she finished speaking, the atmosphere suddenly grew quiet and heavy. He repeated blankly, don't mind. What other people say? Besides, I think the section about all those herbs in that herbal compendium is really interesting. Hearing those words, his eyes suddenly trembled. Huh, really? You think it's interesting too? The person opposite hurriedly said, I used to take it out and read it a lot too. I learned a lot of medical knowledge from it, like how bitter xinshan cools and detoxifies. And there's also that herb used to gather fragrance and dye cloth. Every herb has different effects. It's all so interesting and varied. Seeing how eager she was to learn, he spoke up. Actually, there are even stranger kinds than those. Hearing that, Mac Lamb Tom immediately turned into a student listening attentively. For example, oleander. Its blossoms are clearly gorgeous, and yet it's lethally poisonous. Humans or animals only need to accidentally eat it or touch it, and their lives can immediately be put in danger. Hearing this, she couldn't help exclaiming, so there are really that many strange and bizarre things. What else is there? At that, Lai Tran slowly continued sharing what he knew. The towns in the south are damp and gloomy, which makes bacteria easy to grow. In fact, under heat, many kinds of bacteria can produce toxins that cause hallucinations in people. Suddenly, the person beside him cried out, I remember when I was little, Nanny once fed me a plate of mushrooms. After eating them, I saw fairy maidens dancing all around me. Could that have been poisoning that caused hallucinations? As she spoke, she vividly recalled the scene from back then. After hearing that, he suppressed a laugh and said, in that case, yes, you probably were poisoned. Getting that answer, she immediately cried out, oh no. If you get poisoned, can it make you stupid? As she spoke, she grabbed her head in distress. Seeing that, he simply patted her head gently. Silly girl, don't worry. It only causes temporary hallucinations. If you want to hear more later, I'll tell you bit by bit. At that, the person opposite him regained her composure and replied excitedly. But suddenly his expression changed. He quickly gestured, this is bad. It sounds like someone's coming this way. Outside the cave entrance, cursing rang out. Damn it, bang! A foot crushed a stone on the ground. I refuse to believe those two grew wings and flew away after just one night. At that moment, Huang Quan angrily ordered his subordinates, search everything within a 10-li radius. Even if you have to dig 3 feet into the ground, find those too. If you can't find them, then don't bother coming back. At the same time, a dark red figure stepped forward. Senior brother, don't be so hasty. Given their condition, they probably still haven't left Jinling's borders. As long as they're still in Jinling, no matter how they hide, we'll find a way to locate them. As soon as those words fell, the two hiding inside tensed up, their racing heartbeats pounding loudly. Outside, he sat down, his face incredibly gloomy. Damn it, this forest is too big. And on top of that, Linson already knows about how that man got away before. But at that moment, she noticed something. Then she suddenly laughed. Huh, but the man opposite her kept muttering, "We have to find him before the master finds out. To be safe, we need to send more people to search." Suddenly, she said leisurely, "Senior brother, there's no need to be that tense." As she spoke, she stepped forward and placed a hand on his shoulder. Then she slowly knelt down beside him and whispered, "There are still half-burned firewood pieces in here, and there are no people living anywhere in this forest. So who exactly spent the night in this cave?" Hearing those words, Mac Lam Tom's heart jolted. "We've been discovered." Huang Quan immediately stood up and said loudly, "Junior sister, you think they stayed here last night?" The person beside him answered calmly, "It's possible. These embers are still a little warm. They probably left not long ago. If we surround the area and search now, we'll definitely find them." Hearing this, he was overjoyed. "Good. You lot, search the surroundings thoroughly. Better to kill the wrong person than let anyone slip through." The two subordinates outside hurriedly answered, "Why, yes, yes." At the same time, he hastily added, "Remember, be quick." But suddenly a voice interrupted, "Wait." A hand lifted lightly into the air. "If you're going to search, then shouldn't you search this cave too?" Hearing those words, Lai Tran's eyes narrowed, while the person beside him trembled nonstop in fear. Hearing that, Huang Quan sighed. "Ah, junior sister, leave a small matter like this to your senior brother. You just rest." With that, he started walking deeper into the cave. The sound of his footsteps echoed everywhere, throwing the people hidden in the corner into a panic. "We're dead for sure this time." Then suddenly a voice rang out. I was wondering what it was. "So it's Leader Huang Quan." At the same moment, the footsteps abruptly stopped, and the two of them hurriedly looked toward the cave entrance. A figure had appeared at some unknown moment. "Why aren't you out searching for people? Why are you standing here chatting instead?" The moment he saw the newcomer, Huang Quan ground his teeth in anger. "You Lin Sun, don't spout nonsense. We've already found a trail of those two, and people have been sent after them already. We'll find them within 3 shurchen at most." Hearing that, the man called Lin Sun only said indifferently, "Oh, yesterday you let 2 powerless weaklings escape, and even now you still haven't found them. I wonder what the master will think when he hears that." Huang Quan grew even more furious. "Don't you dare twist black into white. What happened last night was sudden." Hearing this, the woman beside him hurriedly started to speak, "Senior brother." But before she could finish, Lin Sun cut in. "Enough. The master sent me to supervise the two of you. Now the targets have escaped, and instead of pursuing them, you're wasting time here. I wonder whether I should go back and report this or not." The person opposite him frowned and cursed, "Bastard you." But the woman beside him quickly grabbed his hand to stop him. "Senior brother." Then she lowered her voice and said to the man opposite, "Oh, Lin Sun Gij, we only searched this cave a bit more carefully because it seemed suspicious, that's all." Hearing that, he only said coldly, "Fine. I just got word that those two showed up in Shangxi Town this morning. Hurry down the mountain and look for them. Don't let the master find out, or I'll be punished along with you." Though unwilling, she still had to flatter him. "Then thank you, Lin Sun Gij, for the reminder. We'll head down the mountain at once." As for the man beside her, he looked like a volcano on the verge of erupting. As they turned and left, Lin Sun suddenly looked toward the cave. A strange smile curled at his lips. Inside, the two of them seemed to finally cast off a heavy burden. Pale-faced, Lai Tran said, "You're finally gone. If they hadn't left, I would have suffocated to death in here." The person beside him relaxed as well. "That was too dangerous." Then he looked at Mac Lam Tom and said, "There must be their people all around now. If we go out like this, we'll definitely run into danger. Looks like we'll have to take a risk." At that moment, she softly called Lai Tran. Hearing that, he asked in confusion, "HM?" The person opposite him said worriedly, "I think the voice of that person just now sounded really familiar. That man named Lin Sun. I think I may have met him last night." Hearing that, Lai Tran was startled. "What did you say? You've met him before?" "Mak lam tum quickly note that." "Ma'am, last night." Then she slowly explained more clearly. "After I carried you into the cave, I went out alone to look for more herbs, and I suddenly ran into him. He carefully showed me the way down the mountain, and he even generously gave me money to buy some cloth and medicine to stop the bleeding. At the time, that person tossed a few gold ingots at her feet. Take it. There are a few farming households at the foot of the mountain. Use this to trade for some cloth and hemostatic medicine." After hearing that, he couldn't help wondering, but isn't he one of those two people's accomplices? The person opposite him only shook her head and said, Actually, I'm not completely sure it was the same person from last night. At that time, he was sitting in the shadow of a tree, and his whole body was hidden. I couldn't see him clearly. It's just that the voice earlier sounded a lot like the voice of the person from last night. Maybe I was mistaken. At that, he hurriedly stood up. No matter what, we have to leave here quickly. Once they've searched the forest, they'll search the town too. If that happens, it'll be too late. Hearing that, she answered seriously as well. I'll go pack our things. At the foot of the mountain, in Shanxi town, people bustled back and forth. The sound of whispered chatter rose nonstop. Not far away, he wore a face covering and observed the scene outside. Damn it, these people move fast too. The person behind him anxiously clung to his arm. Suddenly, he called softly, Lam Tom. At the same time, a fair hand reached out and suddenly yanked Mac Lam Tam away before she had time to resist. Meanwhile, the man beside her remained completely unaware and kept talking on and on. Don't panic. Just follow me later. It'll be fine, cough, cough. I'm here. Nothing will happen. But when he looked behind him, there was no one there anymore. Lai Tran immediately began to panic. Lam Tum, where did she go? Suddenly a voice called out, Lai Tran, I'm here. Hearing that, he quickly looked over. She was standing with another woman now, gesturing hard for him to come over. At the same time, the people outside started moving. You lot, search over here. Understood. Seeing that, he didn't think too much and ran over at once. The woman from earlier hurriedly urged him, quick, get in here. Outside, one of the subordinates quickly reported, Boss, we've searched everywhere. No one. Hearing that, the man immediately ordered, you and you too, go search over there again. Don't miss even a single ant. Move, and search downstairs too. After the door was shut, the woman finally let out a small sigh of relief. Phew, that scared me to death. Luckily, they left too. Now that the two of them were safe, he cupped his hands in salute. Thank you, miss, for saving us. The person beside him, still a little slow on the uptake, lifted her veil and looked at the woman nearby. Hearing that, she slowly said, no need to thank me. It was my husband who saw the two of you and told me to come help you out. As she spoke, she took out 2 wanted notices. This morning, people posted your portraits all over town. My husband saw you two hiding there earlier, so he told me to bring you somewhere safe. After saying that, she put the papers away, and Mac Lam Tom suddenly spoke up. Thank you, miss, for helping us. Hearing that, he could only feel helpless at his companion's delayed reaction. Silly, you should be calling her madam now. Seeing this, she quickly said, you two don't need to be so polite. Please come inside and rest. Once my husband returns, we can discuss things further. As soon as the door closed, Mac Lam Tom's sigh rang out. Finally we don't have to keep hiding and running anymore. But why are those people trying to kill us? Then something suddenly occurred to her. Is it people from the Luke family? It must be because I ran away from the marriage, right? That's why they're hunting me. The person opposite her quickly explained after hearing her guess, no, that's not it. Those people's clothes weren't like the Luke family's. Besides, if you ran away from a marriage, they could just bring you back for the wedding. Why would they kill you? Hearing that, she drooped and sighed. That's true. We don't have money, and we don't have any treasures either. Why kill us? Those words seemed to stir Lai Tran's suspicions. That's right. If it wasn't for wealth, then why kill us? They're not targeting Lam Tom, so they must be targeting me. Could it be someone found out I left home and wants to test the waters by killing me? Cut off the Luke family's bloodline? At the same time, the person in front of him was still rambling on. Could it be they want to capture me and make me some bandit chief's wife? Like in those Jianghu stories my wet nurse always told me. But he was already immersed in his own tangled thoughts. The fact that I am the Luke family head is known only to the main hall and the inner household. How do they find out? Unless there's a mole. I have to contact my elder brother as soon as possible and tell him about this. His hand unconsciously clenched when suddenly a voice sounded. You too. The door opened, and the woman entered, followed by a handsome man. My husband is back. She hurriedly pulled the man beside her over. Come, let me properly introduce him to you. This is my husband, Taini Dyke Mok. Hearing that, Mac Lam Tom couldn't help being surprised. This is my first time meeting someone with a 4-character name. Lai Tran stepped forward and saluted. Thank you, young master, for your righteous help in saving us. Hearing your honor name just now. Are you from the western regions? She cut in to explain, my husband is from Persia. Our caravan will be setting out from here for Persia. You could just call me Anan. Then Anan slowly explained, actually, we were fortunate enough to meet you two once before in Jincheng. The world is vast, so to run into you again is a rare sort of fate. My husband said that if you two ever ran into trouble, we absolutely had to help. As soon as she finished, he quickly said, we are truly grateful for the life-saving kindness you have shown us. I am. But before he could finish, caution suddenly rose in his heart. No, before I find out who exactly is hunting us, I shouldn't drag innocent people into this. So he immediately introduced himself. I am Lai Tran. Lam Tom is my younger sister. This time, we left home and came to Swang to look for our father. Standing beside him, she quickly lowered her head. Thank you, thank you. Anand suddenly invited them. I've already instructed the kitchen to prepare a proper meal. You two must be hungry. Why don't we eat and talk? At that moment, he asked curiously, may I ask how the two of you managed to offend Kwan Ha Hall? If it's possible, please tell us a little. We might be able to help somehow. The two of them, chewing their food, looked blank. Guanatho, what's that? The person opposite them looked a little surprised. Then why are they trying to kill you? You don't know either? As he spoke, he picked up food for his wife. Anand angrily explained, this Kwan Ha Hall has practically monopolized all the trade routes from Zhenan to the western regions. They rob caravans at the slightest excuse and run rampant everywhere. Even the local authorities don't dare touch them. Who knows how powerful the force backing them is? Only then did Lai Tran slowly recount the whole story. We ran into them on the road to Suan. I even wounded a man named Huang Quan. At first they disguised themselves as ordinary farmers. Then they poisoned us. When that failed to kill us, they attacked directly. Hearing that, Taini Daik Mok finally explained, Huang Quan is the hall master of Kwan Ha Hall. Since you wounded him, it's no wonder the entire Kwan Ha Hall is hunting you. After hearing that, Anand immediately grew worried. The dangerous thing now is that the whole of Shangxi town is under Kwan Ha Hall's control. If they keep searching house by house like this, it won't be long before they get to us. Seeing her worry, he reassured her gently, my lady, don't worry. Your husband has a way to deal with this. A while later, a shrill voice rang out, W what? You want me to dress like them? And no, this is far too revealing. Anand, standing beside her, slowly explained, this time we came to Zhenan on business, and we just so happened to bring along a Persian song and dance troupe. My husband's idea is for you to blend in with the dance troupe. In a few days, it will be the Ulambana Festival, and there'll be a huge lantern fair at night. While the streets are crowded and lively, we'll take the chance to get you two out of the city. After saying that, she pushed her forward. Come on, hey, just try it. This outfit is beautiful. Being forced into it, she looked flustered. Oh wait, after a while, a voice sounded from outside. Miss Lam Tom, are you done changing yet? But inside, the person at the door was red all over and hurriedly blocked it with her body, stammering, and not yet. I still need a little more time. In truth, she had already changed. On the other side, another door slowly opened. Taini Daik Mok, who had been waiting outside, turned immediately at the sound. Seeing Lai Tran in Western region clothing, he stepped forward and asked, does it fit? Hearing that, Lai Tran smiled lightly. It fits quite well. It's just my first time wearing something like this. It feels a little unfamiliar. The man opposite him smiled and explained, Persian clothing has always been free-spirited and unconstrained, and extremely comfortable too. Once you wear it a few times, you'll get used to it. Let's go wait in the main hall first. The two ladies should be almost ready as well. With that, the two of them quickly left. Then, in the corridor, a urging voice suddenly rang out, oh, Lam Tom, it's fine, just come out. It doesn't show that much. You look beautiful, so stop hiding. The person inside, tense and embarrassed, immediately refused. I am fine staying here. I'm not going out. As she spoke, she used leaves to try to cover the exposed parts of her body. At that moment, Anand tried to soothe her. Don't be shy. You really do look beautiful. I'll take you to look in the mirror, all right? Then she suddenly looked in another direction. Husband. With that, she tugged Lam Tom out with force. Look, you too. Isn't she beautiful? Caught off guard by her action, Lam Tom's face turned crimson in embarrassment. Oh, why you saw me? She quickly hugged her body with both arms. You don't look. Seeing her shy appearance, he froze on the spot. Ah, beautiful. Very beautiful. His face gradually reddened too as he praised her. Hearing that, Anand hurriedly asked, well, my eye for these things isn't bad, right? Looking at the one he loved, Taini Daik Mok answered gently, Madam is absolutely right. I had someone go out earlier to check the situation. The people from Kwan Ha Hall have already started searching house by house. To be safe, we'll have to trouble you both to disguise yourselves a little. Hearing this, Lai Tran cupped his hands and said, Young master, you are truly thoughtful. I, Lai Tran, cannot thank you enough. The person beside him bowed her head deeply and mumbled, Thank you, young master. Seeing this, he only smiled. No need to be so polite. Just call me Taini. Although our business here is not small, we're still merchants from outside. When dealing with local tyrants, it's better to avoid direct conflict. So we can only ask you two to bear with some inconvenience. Hearing that, she hurriedly waved her hands. It's not an inconvenience at all. We're already very grateful that you're willing to help us. Then she and Lai Tran went to fetch the instruments for the performance. At the Lantern Festival, just mouth along. It's actually pretty simple. But only moments later, she looked as if she'd been struck by lightning out of a clear sky. What? I also have to learn a Persian dance? Anan, now changed in a costume and standing with the other dancers, said calmly, yes. If you want to leave the city during the Ulambana festival, you'll still have to finish performing at the Lantern Fair first. Only when it's lively and crowded at night can we get you two out of the city. After hearing that, Mac Lam Tom looked troubled, but I've never learned to dance before. The person opposite her quickly comforted her. It's fine, just follow a few movements. It's easy, and you still have me, don't be afraid. Even so, she was still worried. Will this really work? Seeing her hesitation, Anan replied, just relax. Just then, he came running over excitedly with a flute in hand. Lam Tom, I got the flute. But then he suddenly froze. Before him, she was being guided through each movement. Like this. The person beside her kept exclaiming, yes, yes, yes. Twist your waist more and sway a little harder this way. Come, let me tie this silk sash around you, then spin. The ribbon slowly wrapped around her body, making her look even more alluring. Suddenly, their eyes met, and the atmosphere instantly turned awkward. At that moment, he said, but before he could finish, the girl opposite him shyly ran off. I'll go rest over there for a bit. After saying that, she fled, leaving him staring blankly after her. Lam Tum, you really do look beautiful dressed like that. Anan suddenly walked over and asked, beautiful, right? That made the person beside her stiffen, then answer excitedly, yes, very beautiful. Hearing that answer, Anan praised her lavishly. Lam Tom really has a talent for dancing. I haven't taught her for long, and she's already almost got it. The person beside her couldn't stop praising her either. Even the movements look very accurate. Hearing that, Lai Tran smiled and said, yes, she's always been that clever. No matter what she learns, she picks it up very quickly. Across from him, Mac Lam Tom was practicing seriously. Like this? The person behind her hurriedly answered, yes, yes, yes. Miss Lam Tom, you learn so well. Seeing that, he couldn't help thinking to himself, Lam Tom and I are probably like those people in Jianghu stories who fall in love at first sight. Meanwhile, hearing the praise, she happily said, I've learned it. At the sound of that, he suddenly snapped back to himself, inwardly dazed. Love at first sight? His face instantly turned red. So, am I in love? Over on the other side, she wiped her sweat and let out a sigh of relief. Phew! Suddenly, a voice called from behind her, Lam Tom, if you're tired, take a break. Come have some fruit. He brought over a plate of fresh fruit, and she picked up a piece and ate it eagerly. As she ate, she looked at him and said, I'm not tired, not tired. This Persian dance is really beautiful. It's my first time learning to dance, and it's actually quite fun. Those words made the person opposite her feel his heart stir slightly. When Lam Tom looked serious, she's really adorable. After taking a few bites, she suddenly remembered something and sprang to her feet. Right, I need to hurry up and finish eating so I can keep practicing. I'm not talking to you anymore. At that moment, he suddenly thought, once this storm passes, I must confess my feelings to Lam Tom. I'll bring her home to meet my elder brother and have the Luke family formally propose marriage. Wait, what? Propose marriage? The one Lam Tam ran away from marrying. Seems to be me. Only then did Lai Tran remember that he himself was the person involved. His face flushed as he thought in confusion. Although I don't know when I ended up with a fiancé, if that person is Lam Tom, then it truly is exactly what I want. But Lam Tom ran away because she wanted to escape the marriage. If she finds out I'm a Luke family head. At that moment, he suddenly remembered Mac Lam Tom sighing and complaining before. The Luke family head is an extremely brutal man. I heard he's 2 zhang tall and weighs a full 150 gene. He's a great demon king who kills without blinking, and his moods are completely unpredictable. He beats his wife and children at the slightest provocation. And most terrifying of all, my wet nurse said that Luke family head even eats human flesh and drinks human blood. Back then, all he could do was laugh awkwardly. Haha, is that so? Those memories came flooding back, leaving Lai Tran utterly at a loss between laughter and tears. How am I supposed to explain all these misunderstandings to Lam Tam? What a headache. No matter what, the most important thing right now is to escape Kwanha Hall safely, return home, and tell my elder brother there's a mole so he can investigate it clearly. After that, I'll find a chance to tell Lam Tam my true identity. At the same time, the person behind him was still carefree, learning another new movement, when suddenly someone rushed in a panic. Madam, this is bad. People from Kwanha Hall have reached the gate. The young master is dealing with them right now. We need to get ready. Hearing that, Anan was shocked. How'd they get here so fast? I'll go change and stall them. Lam Tam, Lai Tran, you two hide in a room first. Come out with everyone else in a moment. A while later, it was noisy and crowded outside. She stepped forward and asked softly, Sir, all the servants of this household are already here. What exactly are you looking for? At that moment, the man held up a wanted notice and said, have you seen these two people? She looked around for a moment and asked in confusion, HM, aren't these the portraits posted all over the streets this morning? Sir, may I ask what crime these two committed? Hearing that, the man opposite her angrily barked, that's not for you to ask. You only need to answer whether you've seen these two or not. Seeing this, Anan hurriedly said, no. If we had, we would definitely have reported it immediately. One subordinate ran over to report, Sir, we've searched everywhere. There's no one inside. But the man suddenly noticed the women standing not far away. Wait, have these young ladies remove their masks. Check them one by one. Hearing that, Anan panicked. Seeing her reaction, the man turned to her and frowned. Do you have a problem with that? Hearing this, she hurriedly waved her hands. No, it's just, these young ladies are all unmarried. If they remove their masks for others to see, I'm afraid they may never be able to marry in the future. But the other man only snorted coldly. I heard Persian women have always been open and free-spirited. They can wear clothes that bare their legs and midriffs in broad daylight. But taking off a mask is suddenly too much for them to handle. Cornered, she stammered awkwardly, while inwardly screaming in a frenzy, Husband, save me. What do I do? What do I do? We're done for. At the same time, the man opposite her shouted harshly, Take off all your masks. Anyone who refuses will be arrested. The people behind them immediately began whispering in confusion. What is this? What are these people even looking for? Hearing those murmurs, Lam Tam grew even more tense and worried. Her hands clenched tightly at her clothes when suddenly a large, warm hand took hold of hers. The two fell silent. Then Lai Tran suddenly spoke in a soft voice. Don't be afraid. I'm here. Hearing that, she smiled, feeling a little more at ease. Suddenly, a subordinate shouted, You lot, take your masks off for me. Dragging your feet like this. Are you trying to rebel? At that moment, one of the dancers frowned angrily. If you want them off, then fine. Why are you acting so fierce? Do you think this is your own house? The person beside her hurriedly tried to stop her. Why not? But she ignored it, tore off her veil, and snapped, Satisfied now? See clearly enough. Hearing that, Anan frowned and urgently signaled a warning. Nyetina sudzomauta. After looking, the man said, You two, step over here. The two looked at each other, then reluctantly let go of each other's hands. A figure quickly stepped forward, and that haughty voice rang out again. Hurry up, keep dawdling, and don't blame me. The man frowned as he looked at the wanted notice, then at the person in front of him. The sight made Anan deeply anxious. She was just as tense. After a moment, he finally spoke. Fine, stand to the side. Hearing that, Lai Tran slowly turned and walked away. She let out a quiet sigh of relief. She had almost been scared to death, but then the voice rang out again, over there, making the people behind them panic. Again, the subordinate pointed at Lam Tam. I mean you. Hearing those words, her heart trembled in fear. It's over. Then that voice barked again. What are you standing there for? Take off your mask. She slowly removed the covering from her face. Not far away, he instantly tensed. His hand slipped out, a hidden weapon in preparation. Just then, another voice sounded. I was wondering who was making such a scene here. So it's the honored guest from Kwanha Hall. Everyone present turned to look. Tini Dyke Mok had arrived. I wonder who in my residence has offended Kwanha Hall enough to make all of you storm in and turn the place upside down. The man hurriedly bowed and replied, I am under orders to capture a fugitive from Kwanha Hall. If I have offended in any way, I hope young Master Dyke Mok will forgive me. Hearing that, he only said disdainfully, Tini does not dare accept Kwanha Hall's apology. If my lord wishes to search, so be it. But these dancers came all the way from Persia. They're a tribute meant for the king of Lulan. If your actions were to reach his ears, that would not be good. Hearing that, the man opposite began to panic, sweat beading on his forehead. So they're tribute gifts for Lulan? Then I truly have been rude. It was all a misunderstanding. If I have offended today, I hope young Master Daikmak will forgive me. Our hall master has long heard that young Master Daikmak is a rare talent, accomplished in both letters and arms. Kwanha Hall will always welcome your honored visit. Yalat, follow me. Search somewhere else, quickly. After they left, Lai Tran finally spoke politely. Thank you, young Master Taini, for stepping in to help just now. Hearing that, Taini Daikmak only replied calmly, no need to be so courteous. It's just that in only 2 days, Kwanha Hall has already gathered people all the way from Tranam to Shangxi. They must be determined to dig 3 feet into the ground if that's what it takes to find you both. You can't remain in Shangxi any longer. We must leave in 2 days. Just now, I brought the king of Lulan into it, so Kwanha Hall should be wary enough not to search again. But I fear they still have their suspicions. We absolutely must prepare every possible countermeasure. Hearing that, he explained, we haven't been able to go out these past 2 days. Could young master perhaps help me find these herbs? I want to prepare a little more before we leave the city, just in case. As he spoke, he held out a sheet of paper. Taking it, the man replied loudly, that's easy enough. But when he read the list carefully, he was startled. Western crow herb, poisonwood, elephant tusk, red. These are all highly poisonous. Lai Tran did not avoid the matter and answered at once. That's right. Young master, rest assured, I have never wished to harm anyone. I'm simply interested in medicine and have studied it. But with the situation so pressing, I have no choice but to carry some poison to protect myself. After hearing this, Taini Daikmak tucked away the paper and said confidently, leave it to me. During these next 2 days, the two of you should familiarize yourselves with Persian customs and culture. The more you know, the less likely you'll be exposed to the Lantern Festival. It's getting late. In a bit, Anan will take you back to your rooms to rest. I found an excuse to take my leave from the county magistrate, but to avoid suspicion, I have to go back there for a while. If you need anything, just tell Anan. We'll do everything we can to help. Hearing that, Lai Tran quickly bowed. Young Master Taini is too kind. We should also return and discuss our plans. Beside him, Mac Lam Tom waved goodbye as well. Once they returned to their room, she could not help feeling uneasy. That was so tense today. We were almost discovered. Seeing her like that, the other person gently patted her head in comfort. Lam Tom, don't be afraid. You still have me. Hearing those words, she suddenly looked up, her thoughts turning blank with confusion. Just now, Lai Tran had held her hand and said the same thing, and the man in front of her, after making the gesture himself, seemed to freeze, silently scolding himself. What am I doing? Then he gave an awkward cough. Ahem, ahem. Well, the person in front of him also calmed herself and turned away. It took him a moment before he spoke again. These next 2 days, I'll prepare some poison for self-defense. In any case, we should carry hidden weapons too. If we run into them, we'll at least be able to protect ourselves. At that point, she suddenly spoke softly. Seeing that, he thumped his chest and replied forcefully, Little Sister Lam Tom, don't worry. No matter what happens, I'll protect you completely. At that, Mac Lam Tom's gaze wavered. Well, seeing her hesitate, the person opposite looked a little puzzled. After making up her mind, she lifted her head and proposed, Lai Tran, if you don't mind me being slow, then let me make the poisons together with you. I can't keep relying on you to protect me forever. At the very least, I should learn some skills to defend myself. Hearing those words, he let out a startled, Little Sister Lam Tom, but she interrupted him with a smile. Besides, I'm already interested in these strange herbs. I can learn and protect myself at the same time. Kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Lai Tran smiled and agreed. All right. Hearing that, she did not forget to warn him first. Then you're not allowed to call me slow. He immediately assured her, I won't. Just then, another voice sounded in surprise. What did you say? At that moment, Nhyat Waina stood with her hands on her hips and said irritably, I said we shouldn't have taken those 2 in to begin with. What if we get dragged into their trouble? Madam, you really do love meddling in other people's affairs. Hearing that, Anan frowned unhappily. Nhyat Waina, don't talk nonsense. Wasn't it because I meddled in your affairs too that I saved you and brought you back? The woman beside them hurriedly tried to explain, Madam, those are completely different matters. But Nan paid no attention and turned away. What's different about them? If I hadn't taken you in, I'd have enough money to buy 2 more camels. The other woman immediately cried out, Madam, but she cut her off. All right, stop talking. My head hurts already. I'm going to sleep. In the medicine room, Lai Tran was intently preparing the mixture. He slowly poured all the herbs into the mortar, then let out a quiet breath. Actually, many herbs found in the mountains are scarce and also poisonous. For example, This Wester Crow herb is very strong in toxicity. Just a little smeared on an arrow can kill a person in an instant. But if it is processed over a low flame for a long time, its poison can be tempered. It can then warm the body and relieve pain, and is especially effective for people suffering from paralysis or the after effects of stroke. As he spoke, he picked up the medicine and turned away. Meanwhile, Mac Lam Tom, sitting beside him, stared at it intently. So that's how it is. As he put away the herbs, he explained, there are many other interesting herbs too. Later, I'll tell you about them one by one. At the same time, she reached her hand into the mortar. Hearing the sudden silence, he quickly turned around. When he saw her opening her mouth wide, about to taste it, his face instantly went pale, and he screamed inwardly. Heavens! He hurriedly stopped her. Lam tum! His hands moved quickly to deal with the herbs on her fingers. Then he immediately took the mortar away. The scene left the girl beside him bewildered. The other person could only stammer, this one, don't try it, alright? If you do something rash like last night, back to the previous night, a bright bouquet of flowers was held out before her. Lam tum, loop. This is called elephant tusk red. In small amounts, it calms the mind and relieves pain. In larger amounts, it can be made into a colorless, odorless sleeping drug. Hearing about its effects, she could not help exclaiming, that's amazing. The man opposite agreed. Exactly. At that moment, she picked a flower petal up and, ignoring his stunned look, popped it straight into her mouth. The sight shocked Lai Tran to the core. The moment she had barely chewed one bite, she fell backward and fainted. Seeing that, he panicked. Lam Tom, don't faint on me, hey? At that moment, the other person clutched the mortar even tighter. Yesterday, it was only a sleeping drug. Today, this is deadly poison, extremely potent. Don't go tasting it. Hearing that, she actually brightened up. Really? Then I'll write that down. Time flew by, and at last Mac Lam Tom placed the final sheet of paper on top. I finally finished writing. Standing beside her, he said, there shouldn't be anything missing. She then said innocently, so making poison is actually this complicated. The other person slowly explained, it's not just poison. There are also some medicinal ingredients for detoxifying and treating injuries. We only need them to stay alive. Unless it's an emergency, the less we use, the better. Just then, a knock came at the door. Knock, knock. He turned to look suspiciously. Then suddenly, a tray of food was set down with a thump, startling both of them. Hyatt Waina said irritably, hey, Madam said you two didn't have time to eat, so she told us to bring this over. Seeing her attitude, the person beside her reminded her, Hyatt Waina, Madam told you to be polite to the guests. Then she turned to the two of them awkwardly. Miss Lam Tom, Madam personally want to tell the cook to make this. Hurry and eat it while it's still hot. If there's anything else you need, just say so. We'll be going now. Without giving either of them a chance to speak, she pushed the other woman away and left. At night, in Anand's room, she looked at her husband in surprise. You mean those two aren't brother and sister? And you could tell. Hearing that, Taini Dyke Mock looked rather knowing. Of course, just from the way he looks at her. As he spoke, he lightly tapped the nose of the woman before him. Ow, the way who looks at whom? She asked. He replied, of course, the way Lai Tran looks at Lam Tom. The way Lai Tran looks at Lam Tom reminded me of 3 years ago when I first met you at the Customs Pass in your city of the Western regions. A soft voice called out to him, sir, would you like some authentic hu cakes? My family's hu cakes are the most authentic in all of Persia. Even the richest caravan of the Dyke Mock family in the western regions only eats hu cakes from my stall. The moment he saw Nan, an inexplicable smile appeared on his face. After hearing this, she asked curiously, then why are Lai Tran and Lam Tom hiding who they are? But before she could finish, he interrupted. Everyone has their own difficulties. We shouldn't ask too much. Let's just pretend we know nothing. At that, the woman seemed enlightened and nodded in agreement. Husband, you're right. The important thing now is to get them safely out of Shangxi. Just then a cry rang out. What? You mean? Mac Lam Tom stared at the person opposite her in shock. I'll be the lead dancer. Hearing that, Anand patiently explained further. You know there will definitely still be plenty of danger at the Lantern Festival. And isn't it said that the most dangerous place is often the safest? No one would ever guess that fugitives wanted by Kwan Ha Hall would be performing as the lead dancer in the Dyke Mock family's Persian dance troupe. However, the person in front of her still looked hesitant. But can I really do it? Hearing that, Anand comforted her. Don't worry. You dance very well. There won't be any problem. At night, Anand looked behind her and said excitedly, is everything ready? The dancers answered enthusiastically, ready. Hearing that, she quickly opened the door. Then let's get ready to head home. The moment the doors opened, the people behind her cried out in surprise, "Wow," while Mac Lam Tom froze and stammered. As so many people, Lan Dun Hung Avoa, standing beside her, Lai Tran raised his hand. Lam Tum, let's go. Hearing that, she placed her hand in his palm and replied. The atmosphere at once became lively. A little girl stared behind her in wonder. "Mom, look, the Persian dance troupe, just like last year. The Persian dance troupe is here. So pretty." At the same time, a vendor's voice rang out, "Miss, by a floating lantern. Set it on the lake, and your wishes are sure to come true. You might even find your ideal husband." Hearing that, Mac Lam Tom's attention was immediately drawn over. "A floating lantern?" Then she said excitedly, "Floating lanterns look like fun. Ma'am, I'd like to buy one." After buying it, she set it onto the water, unable to stop herself from wondering, what kind of person would my ideal husband be? If possible, I hope I can stay by Lai Tran's side forever. After making her wish, she called out happily, "All right, time to head back." But when she turned around, there was no one there. Where did everyone go? At that same moment, a shout rang out. "You lot, search over there carefully for me. Don't let a single suspicious person slip by." Hearing that voice, she turned in shock toward the source, and panic surged in her heart. "Oh no, it's Quan Ha Hall." But just then, a hand grabbed hers, and a voice spoke in Persian. "So you're here, after all, Amok." Startled, she quickly turned and saw Nhayat Waina excitedly pulling her along. Speaking in Persian as she walked, "Madam and Master said you weren't allowed to run around. Hurry and come back with me." Once they had gone far enough, Mac Lam Tom said joyfully, "Nhayat Waina, thank you for saving me." But the other woman still put on an arrogant air. I wasn't trying to save you. I just happened to run into you. Who told you to run around everywhere? What a nuisance." On the other side, Anan quickly said, "Everyone's already getting into the carriage. Let's hurry and reach Siu Dong City before dawn." Inside the carriage, Mac Lam Tom dozed off, tilting over onto Lai Tran's shoulder. The action took him by surprise, but then an unconscious, gentle smile appeared on his face. He wrapped an arm around her shoulders. At the same time, the people opposite also noticed. Taini Dyke Mok, with his wife resting her head on his lap, only smiled at the sight and said nothing. Then Taini Dyke Mok looked at the person opposite and said slowly, "No need to be so polite. Although we've already left Kim City, it's hard to avoid Quan Ha Hall's spies and watchful eyes. Changing clothes will make your movements less obvious." At the same time, a hand gently lifted the curtain, and Anan's excited voice rang out, Come, look at how our Lam Tom looks in this outfit." As she spoke, she pulled Mac Lam Tom forward. Seeing the scene, Lai Tran did not hold back his praise. "Wow, Lam Tom, you look beautiful." Hearing those words, Anan suddenly pushed the person beside her toward him. "Oh my, Mak Lam Tom panik, but anyan oli lauget bozali." What a perfect match. A golden boy and jade girl, huh? After a moment, Taini Dyke Mok finally spoke. "Once we pass through Siu Dong City, we'll be heading toward the Kingdom of Lulan in the western regions. Do the two of you have any plans?" When asked, Lai Tran fell silent for a moment before replying, "Originally, we intended to go to Hong. But before that, we still need to go to Mount Tung Tu in Tran Nam to confirm a few things." Hearing this, the person in front of him looked a little puzzled. "Mount Tung Tu? If you two go to Mount Tung Tu now, I'm afraid that won't be very safe." He raised his head and asked softly, "HM, what would be unsafe about it?" Taini Dyke Mok then added quietly, "I've heard that Tran Nam is Luke family's territory, especially the Mount Tung Tu area." Suddenly, the person beside him asked blankly, "Luke family? Which Luke family?" "Ah, the Luke family in Tran Nam. That's right, Lai Tran, Lam Tom, the two of you must be careful. This Luke family is very closely connected to Quan Ha Hall." Hearing this, he became even more suspicious. What? Seeing the expression on the other person's face, he lightly tapped his wife's head in warning. "Don't talk nonsense. This is just a rumor in merchant circles." Then he turned to Lai Tran and explained further. But Anan hugged her head and cried out indignantly, "But that's how it is. I heard Quan Ha Hall is actually backed by the Luke family. That's not even a rumor anymore. After those bastards from Quan Ha Hall robbed the caravan, they even arrogantly said that if we had the guts, we should go to the Luke family for revenge." The two people in front of them fell silent, but his hand had already clenched into a fist as he thought, "Why? How is Quan Ha Hall connected to the Luke family? Big brother, what exactly is going on here?" Seeing that he couldn't stop his wife, the man slowly changed the subject. "In any case, if you two insist on going, then you must be careful." The woman beside him hurriedly chimed in, That's right. Be sure to stay safe." After hearing that, he nodded firmly. We definitely will be careful." But outside, a masked figure was secretly eavesdropping. Afterward, he hurried away. Outside the city, Taini Dyke Mok said, "It's time for us to part ways here." The person behind them was already teary-eyed. "You two must take care." Seeing this, he said, "Take care. Thank you both for looking after us these past few days." When Anan heard that, she cried even harder. "Wah, Lam Tom, Lai Tran, you have to come find me at 34, okay?" Mac Lam Tom's tears rolled down as she answered, definitely." As the caravan departed, she looked after their fading figures and said softly, "They're really such kind people. These past few days were dangerous, but they were also very happy. Now that we're suddenly leaving, I really can't bear it." Hearing that, the person beside her answered calmly, "There's no feast under heaven that doesn't end. If we're fated, we'll meet again." Suddenly, a voice called out from behind, Lai Tran. The sound seemed to pull his soul back. "HM." He turned to look, and she asked softly, "Do you think one day we'll part like this too?" Seeing the other person stare blankly, she hurriedly changed the subject. "Forget it. I was just asking casually." But at that moment, the other person's heart suddenly stirred violently. Lam Tum. That night, at the Luke family residence in Tran Nam, a voice sounded inside the room. "Master, we found the young master's jade pendant at a pawn shop in Kim City." As he spoke, the man respectfully presented the jade piece. The man opposite took it and couldn't help but frown in confusion. Why would the jade pendant appear in a pawn shop? The other quickly explained, this subordinate already asked the pawn shop owner. He said the young master sold the jade pendant for money, and it seems he took that money to Lin E Pavilion in the city to buy a set of clothes. The man in front of him continued asking, still no trace of the young master? The subordinate then recounted everything. Since the young master discovered in Kim City that someone was following him, we've lost all trace of him. This subordinate has already sent more men to surround Kim City and continue the search. The man instructed slowly expand the search area. It's also possible he's fled elsewhere. Bribe the authorities and have notices posted. This time, even if you have to tie him up, bring him back. After hearing this, the man immediately replied, understood. Once he left, the man muttered softly, Luke Lai Tran, are you tired of living? In Siu Dong City, inside an inn, the townspeople who were eating couldn't help complaining. Sigh, this road hasn't been easy to travel lately. Those people from Kwanha Hall have been robbing caravans everywhere, making everyone panic and uneasy. The person opposite him grew even more frustrated. Isn't that so? But what can anyone do? Kwanha Hall is backed by the Luke family, that family head of the Luke family. Even the Imperial Court on the Golden Road has to give him some leeway. Which official in Tran Nam would dare say a word? The man in front of him sneered. They've done so many wicked things. Heaven is watching. If you ask me, sooner or later the Luke family will get what's coming to them. At the same time, Lai Tran sat in a corner, hearing every word. Inwardly, he thought, big brother, what kind of person are you really? The Luke family where I grew up, those kind people. What is really going on? Outside, the sky was bright and clear. Mac Lam Tom asked blankly, so are we setting out right away now? Hearing this, he nodded and answered, Although Siu Dong City is a frontier city, it's also the largest city along the border. The longer we stay here, the more likely it is that Kwanha Hall's people will find us. Their agents may already be inside the city. Outside the city, he stood beside the carriage and urged, then let's get going. The carriage slowly began to move, the sound of wheels clattering steadily. And suddenly a shout rang out. Stop! Kwanha Hall's people had appeared. Follow the carriage ahead. Once it leaves the city, make your move. Don't leave anyone inside alive. At that same moment, a hand lifted the carriage curtain. Sitting inside, Lai Tran frowned and said, just as expected. Mac Lam Tom, sitting beside him, was startled. We've been targeted. But how did you know someone was following us? Didn't young Master Taini just confirm earlier that no one was tailing us? As he lowered his hand, he said slowly, Kwanha Hall's people are all concentrated in Tran Nam. Logically speaking, they shouldn't still have failed to search this far by now. So I thought there were only two possibilities. 1, they gave up looking for us. 2, they've already found us, but to avoid alarming us, they chose to strike in secret. We need to leave this place quickly too. Lam Tom, let's take the mountain path over here. Inside the quiet forest, the sound of exhausted panting could be heard. Huff, huff. He kept grumbling, so tired, I'm dying here. But the person beside him looked around seriously. Is there really a path here? We haven't gotten lost, have we? Hearing her doubt, he explained, there's a shortcut here leading to Mount Tung too. The road is a little rough, but it's much closer than the main road, and safer too. Suddenly, the person in front of him asked, Lai Tran, how do you know this road? Faced with the question, his face suddenly paled. He thought to himself, I can't exactly say it's because I ran away from home as a child and found this road, can I? So he hurriedly made something up. When I was young, I sometimes followed my elders out and took shortcuts like this. Hearing that, she only murmured softly, I see. After continuing onward, the two of them arrived by a lakeside, and Mac Lam Tom scooped up some water to wash her face. At the same time, the person beside her took out a few steamed buns. Lam Tom, let's rest here for a bit. Taking the food, she answered softly, Lai Tran sat beside her and asked worriedly, tired? Hold on a little longer. We've already covered quite a distance. At this pace, we'll be able to leave this forest in 3 more days. Hearing that, she smiled and replied, I'm not tired. It's okay. After hearing that answer, he couldn't help smiling too. Suddenly, voices sounded not far away. Search over here. Understood. The moment the voices ended, rustling noises rang out nonstop. He tensed up at once. Damn, sounds like someone is coming. At that moment, a figure pushed aside the leaves. Then a voice sounded. No one here. The man walked to the lakeside, looked around for a while, and said, There's no way forward on this side either. But then he suddenly fell silent in thought. Right then, another voice called out, Go check over there. Underwater, the two of them watched carefully. Covering her mouth, she thought with difficulty, No, I can't hold it any longer. Bubbles escaped from her mouth and floated to the surface. The sound immediately drew that subordinate's attention. HM, then suddenly, 2 hands pulled her close. He pressed a kiss to the other person's lips to pass her air, but the action made her freeze completely. The man above turned his head back, eyes full of suspicion. But when he saw nothing unusual, an urging voice rang out, Search carefully. Don't miss a single corner. Meanwhile, underwater, Mac Lam Tom's eyes were wide with shock. Even so, the person before her remained focused on giving her air. The moment the kiss ended, she nearly choked on the water. She hurriedly pushed Lai Tran away. It took her a while before she calmed down again. Seeing this, he grabbed her hand, ignoring her stunned expression behind him. The two of them slowly swam up to the surface. Phew, their breathing was rapid now. Behind her, he grumbled, I almost suffocated to death. Hearing that, she only reminded him, Look around. The other person silently examined their surroundings carefully. Once they were sure it was safe, he said helplessly, They've probably all left. There's no movement around us anymore. Be careful, the rocks are slippery. They came from the southeast, so for now they won't search places they've already checked. We just need to go in the direction they've already swept through. At this, the other person said eagerly, while the person in front of him only flushed red and hurriedly walked past him. Then let's go. But suddenly she stopped and turned back to look at him. About that, the person in front of her blinked blankly. At the same time, her face turned scarlet, and she stammered, just now. Even though it was an emergency, and there was no other choice, ever since I was little my wet nurse told me. But before she could finish, she suddenly got angry, shoved him, and shouted, Anyway, you are absolutely not allowed to tell anyone what happened just now. After saying that, she turned around and left in embarrassment. Hurry up. At the same time, the other person foolishly touched his lips, warmth secretly rising in his heart. Silly girl. After traveling through the forest for some time, the two of them finally arrived at a town. Lai Tran said tiredly, Phew, we've finally reached a place with people. Suddenly, a growling sound rang out. Her face reddened in embarrassment as she said, Teach that. Hearing the sound, he burst into laughter. After walking this long, you must be hungry, right? Let's find a place to eat first, then continue on our way. The streets were bustling with people. The two of them are now seated inside an inn. As she ate, Mac Lam Tom asked, So now we have to go to Mount Tung too? Hearing that, he answered slowly, There are a few things I need to confirm. Lam Tom, just don't worry. Once we reach Tung Kwa Town at the foot of Mount Tung 2, you can stay there for a day or two. After I settle everything, I'll come find you. Suddenly, the person opposite asked, Your family must be very wealthy, right? Those words made Lai Tran freeze. Then, feeling guilty, he made up an excuse. My family has been in business for generations, so we've accumulated a bit of property. It's nothing worth talking about. Better tell me about yourself. Ho ding dis, mak lam tam luk bolang li. Me? Seeing that, he asked, You're the Luke family's adopted daughter. Have you really never met the head of the Luke family? She slowly shook her head. Never. I grew up in Fong City. My wet nurse said the residence in Fong City was a temporary estate where Madame Luke once stayed. Later, Madame Luke returned to the main residence, and only a few servants remained behind to keep this side estate in order. Hearing this, the person opposite was shocked to the core. Huh, my mother. Then he asked again, so have you met Madame Luke? The person in front of him replied while chewing, never, but I heard from my wet nurse that Madame Luke carried me back from the lakeside. At that moment, his face turned pale. Huh. Outside, the sky was bright and clear. At the same time, in a room, a figure sat by the tea table, lost in thought. Lai Tran stammered, you said my mother. Ho ding dis, mak lam tam bolinket bolang li. Huh. Realizing he had misspoken, he cursed himself inwardly. What did I just say? Then he hurriedly tried to cover it up. No, that's not what I meant. I wanted to ask whether your wet nurse said Madam Luke carried you home. Hearing the question, she quickly said, My wet nurse said Madam Luke was a very kind person. Although she was of noble status, she was never arrogant at all. After finding me that year, she entrusted me to my wet nurse to raise, and even instructed her to take good care of me, bring me up properly, and find a teacher to teach me reading and writing. Hearing this, the other person answered somewhat stiffly, Then Madam Luke really is a good person. But inside, he was deeply moved. Mother, after picking up countless cats and dogs, you finally picked up the right person this time. Then he picked up some food and urged her, Lamb Tom, hurry and eat. Eat more. After we finish eating, we still have a long way to go. As she ate, she praised the food. It's so delicious. So how are we supposed to go next? Suddenly, the person in front of her said, Quan Ha Hall is too powerful in Tran Nam. Even if we're careful from now on, it'll be hard to avoid running into them. The best thing for now is to circle back. Hearing that, the person opposite looked confused. Circle back. Li Jiangtan et lai sao mama. The most dangerous place is often the safest. Normally, once they've thoroughly searched an area, they won't go back there again. So we'll just take the same route back. But the moment he finished speaking, she had already walked past him, leaving him staring blankly. Huh. Then Mac Lam Tom said, Then let's head out now. Seeing this, he blinked in confusion. We're not eating anymore? Inside the forest, rustling sounds rang out. Suddenly, he called excitedly, Lamb Tom, come look at this. I found something really interesting. As he spoke, he pushed aside the branches, while the person behind him looked blankly. Huh? He held out a cluster of flowers. Do you know what kind of plant this is? At first glance, it looks like honeysuckle, but in fact, before he could finish, the person in front of him cut him off. In fact, this is heartbreak grass. Hearing that, he looked surprised. Huh, you know this too? She then explained slowly, The Compendium of 100 Herbs mentions this plant. People often mistake it for honeysuckle and die after eating it. In fact, it's an extremely poisonous plant. The book says every part of it is highly toxic, especially the roots. I've only seen it in books before. This is the first time I've seen it in real life. Hearing this, the person beside her smiled and added, Most medicinal herbs have two sides. In the hands of evil people, this becomes a lethal poison that kills. But physicians have discovered that heartbreak grass is extremely effective at relieving pain. Something this rare and useful should be kept just in case. As he spoke, he tucked it into his sleeve. In Thuong, Key Town, the two of them were hiding behind a tree. Nervously, she asked the person beside her, Lai Tran, do you think they've really left? When asked, he replied softly, I checked earlier. There are no more Quan Ha Hall people here. But just to be safe, we still need to be careful. We'll wait until night to act. Late that night, two figures moved stealthily. Lai Tran called softly, Lamb Tom, in a moment step on my back and climb over there. I've calculated it already. As long as we get over this wall, we'll be out of the city. A trembling voice answered, Oh, okay. Not yet? She struggled awkwardly and replied, Just a little more. The person below used more force to push her up. But inwardly he thought, Lamb Tom, I think you've really been eating a little too much. Then she fell straight over to the other side. Ouch! Seeing this, he hurriedly leapt over as lightly as a swallow, and after landing, his face couldn't help showing a trace of pride. A perfect landing. I'm way too outstanding. What a burden. Invincibility really is lonely. Applause, please. But while the other party was still striking a pose, Mac Lam Tom suddenly turned pale and urgently shook the person beside her. Hey, only then did he snap out of it and cry out blankly, Huh? You people are. At the same moment, the people standing before them looked the two of them over. and one of them suddenly shouted, "How dare you!" sneaking into the county magistrate's residence in the dead of night. Then he demanded, "What exactly are you two plotting?" Those words struck him like a bolt from the blue, and he stammered in shock. The county magistrate's residence. Hearing this, Lai Tran covered his face and screamed inwardly without end. "Ah, Luke Lai Tran, you bastard. Could you even mess up something as simple as climbing over a wall? Is your brain stuffed with paste?" At that moment, a figure stepped out and barked coldly. "What are all of you doing here? I told you to fetch a physician. Have you found one yet? The young lady's illness cannot wait." The man was Uncle Fong, the loyal steward of the magistrate's residence. Hearing this, someone immediately stepped forward and said, reporting to Steward Fong, "Dr. Lee's disciple said his master went up the mountain to gather herbs yesterday. When this servant returned, I found these two suspicious people climbing over the wall and sneaking into the residence. The two of them immediately panicked. He hurriedly waved his hands and explained anxiously, 'No, no, no. This is all just a misunderstanding.' At that, a scornful voice rang out. If you wanted to leave the city, why not go through the city gate? Why insist on climbing over a wall? It's obvious you're up to something." Just then, the person opposite spoke in a gentler tone. "Please, sir, judge this fairly. My sister and I were pursued here by enemies seeking our lives. We were truly driven into a desperate corner, which is why we had no choice but to travel secretly under cover of night. We are both physicians who heal the sick and save lives. We are absolutely not bad people." Hearing that, Uncle Fong was startled and hurriedly interrupted, "Wait, did you say you're physicians?" Seeing the obvious change in the man's attitude, he answered blankly, "Huh? Yes, we are." The steward immediately said eagerly, "Our young lady has been afflicted by a strange illness. If you can cure her, the county magistrate will not only spare your lives, but he can also send you safely out of the city by carriage. What do you say?" Hearing this, Lai Tran immediately agreed. "It's a deal." At that moment, a young maid slowly carried tea along the corridor while the two sat inside. Mac Lam Tom remained visibly tense and nervous. Suddenly, the person beside her spoke to reassure her, "Lam Tom, don't be afraid. Nothing will happen." Just then a voice cut in, "Master, these are the two who said they are confident they can cure the young lady." Uncle Fong bowed and reported to the man before him. The man in official robes spoke. "I heard you are physicians." Hearing this, he stepped forward and bowed respectfully. "We would not dare call ourselves great physicians, but this humble one has studied medicine since childhood and knows rather more than most about rare poisons and strange illnesses. I heard the young lady is suffering from an unusual ailment that has resisted treatment for a long time, so I boldly asked permission to treat her." After hearing this, the other party slowly said, "If you can cure my daughter, I will certainly prepare a generous reward." The man before him merely smiled in reply. "Many thanks, sir, for your trust. Could you take us to see the young lady's condition? Her illness is worsening by the day and cannot be delayed. We need to examine her as soon as possible so we can prescribe the proper medicine." The county magistrate hurriedly said, "Please follow me this way." Inside the room, a beautiful young woman lay unconscious on the bed. He looked at his daughter and explained softly, "My daughter has suffered from this strange illness for more than 3 months. It began with tightness in the chest and shortness of breath, and her complexion was poor. Later, only grew more critical, and she has been unconscious for the past 3 days." As he spoke, he could not help sighing. The gaze of the person beside him also turned serious. Then he said, "Forgive my offense," and quickly took her pulse. But the moment he examined her, Lai Tran's eyes suddenly shifted. Strange. After a while, he finally asked, "Has the young lady's condition improved at all in the last few days?" Her close maid, Xiao Chui, hurriedly added, "Yesterday morning, Steward Fong came to see her, and afterward Miss did seem a little better. Her breathing also became much steadier. But by nightfall, for some reason, she suddenly developed a high fever, and it still hasn't shown any signs of subsiding." After hearing this, his expression turned troubled, and he murmured softly, "There are actually 2 kinds of poison in her body, restraining and countering each other. How strange." Hearing that, the county magistrate immediately shouted, "Bring pen and ink at once." At this moment, he focused intently on writing out the prescription, then suddenly called in a low voice, "Lam Tom." The person beside him looked blank. He handed her the paper and carefully instructed her, "Go with the maid and fetch these herbs for me." Then he leaned in close and whispered, "Remember this, when getting the medicine, absolutely do not let any decoction pass through anyone else's hands. You must personally bring it back yourself. Only then will it be safe." Hearing this, Mac Lam Tam gave a slight start and replied softly, "Huh? Leave it to me. No problem." Only after receiving her answer did he continue. "Miss Xiao Chui, the herbs in this prescription are rather complicated. I'd better go with you to fetch them, so there won't be any mistakes." At that moment, a bowl of medicine was set down on the table. Mac Lam Tom looked at the magistrate and said, "Lord Zhang, after the young lady takes the medicine, she should wake before long." Upon hearing this, he burst into tears. "Thank you all so very much. But what exactly is this strange illness my daughter has? Please explain it clearly to this old man." Standing beside him, Lai Tran finally spoke. "It's a long and complicated story, and this is not a convenient place to explain it. Please, Magistrate Zhang, let us move somewhere quieter, and we will explain in more detail." Hearing this, the other party hurriedly answered, "Yes, yes, yes. Please come with me to the main hall." Xiao Chui, quickly have someone prepare hot tea. Inside the main hall, his face turned grim as he said, "Forgive me for speaking bluntly, but the young lady does not have a strange illness. She has been poisoned with a rare and dangerous toxin." Hearing these words, the magistrate frowned deeply. "What did you say? Poison?" The man before him slowly explained. "The young lady was poisoned with something called yikao. This poison is colorless and tasteless. If taken in too large a dose, it will quickly cause a person's internal organs to fail, leading to death. The strange thing is that this poison was added to the young lady's food repeatedly in small amounts. Because she consumed poisoned food, her body grew weaker and weaker, and her complexion became abnormal. Yet one meal alone would not put her life in immediate danger. The one who poisoned her did not seem to be in a hurry to take her life." After hearing this, the county magistrate slammed the table and shouted, "Men, bring me all the servants responsible for the young lady's 3 daily meals at once." Only then did Lai Tran continue. "When I took the young lady's pulse today, I discovered there was another poison in her body as well, one that seems to have been administered not long ago. The two poisons counteract each other, which is why the young lady developed a persistent high fever. At that moment, the woman opposite began sweating coldly and trembling all over. Then a figure suddenly dropped to her knees and stammered, Master, it has nothing to do with this servant. Yes, it was Steward Fong who ordered me to do it." Hearing this, Uncle Fong shouted furiously, "You," but before he could finish, the other party cut him off. Master, please investigate clearly. This damn girl is talking nonsense and falsely accusing me. I truly have reason on my side, but I cannot explain it clearly. Master, Steward Fong forced this servant to do it. I don't dare lie. Steward Fong told me to follow his instructions and put these medicines into the young lady's food. Afterward, he would give me money to take home and treat my mother's illness. I only agreed because of my mother's condition. Master, please spare this servant." At that moment, Xiao Chui also suddenly remembered. "That's right, I remember now. It was after Steward Fong visited yesterday morning that Miss developed a high fever again." The magistrate glared furiously at the person beside him. What exactly is the meaning of this? Realizing he had been exposed, Uncle Fong hurriedly dropped to his knees. He kowtowed repeatedly and begged, "Master, spare my life. This lowly one was only momentarily foolish and did something absurd. I only wanted to put a little poison in the young lady's food, so she would suffer a mild, strange illness, not too painful or serious. Then I would cure her and receive a reward from Master. I truly never had the courage to harm the young lady." Hearing this, Lai Tran, seated not far away, spoke with disdain. "And you still dare say you didn't intend to kill? Do you know that Yikao and the Danyu you later gave the young lady are mutually incompatible? Once they interact inside the body, it won't be long before they kill a person." Every word struck the man like a sledgehammer to the head. After saying this, Lai Tran looked toward the man seated in the place of honor. "County Magistrate, the toxicity of Yikao is extremely cold in nature. Danyu may temporarily neutralize its effects, but Danyu itself is fundamentally different from Yikao. Using it only makes the illness grow more severe." Hearing this, the magistrate shouted angrily, "Men, drag Steward Fong and this kitchen servant away and throw them into prison." A prompt chorus of yes followed. The two of them immediately began pleading nonstop. "Master, spare my life. This servant truly was only momentarily foolish. Master, it was all the idea of Hall Master Huang of Chuena Hall. He gave it to me. My lord, please investigate clearly, my lord." After hearing these words, the magistrate's expression turned grave. Chuena Hall again. On the surface, they appear friendly with the authorities, yet behind the scenes they commit every kind of evil and outrage. I truly must thank you all for saving my daughter's life. Might I know the names of my benefactors? Hearing this, the man before him slowly introduced himself. There is no need for such courtesy, County Magistrate. My name is Lai Tran, and this is my younger sister, Lam Tum. At this, the magistrate spoke respectfully. Young Master Lai Tran, Miss Lam Tom, I truly have nothing with which to repay the life-saving grace you have shown my daughter. Would you be willing to remain at my residence for a few more days, so that I may properly host a banquet in your honor? Hearing this, he accepted the offer. Then we shall trouble the county magistrate. Suddenly, urgent cries rang out from outside. Master, master, the young lady has awakened. A maid rushed in with the news. Inside the boudoir, Zhang Yunzi sat up on the bed, looking bewildered. At that moment, a figure rushed in, face full of tears. Woo, my daughter. Hearing the voice, she looked over blankly. Father. The magistrate threw himself forward and embraced her. My dear daughter, you frightened your father half to death. If anything had happened to you, how could I face your mother in the underworld? After a tearful reunion, he regained his composure and said, Come, let young Master Lai Tran take your pulse again. Hearing that unfamiliar name, she looked a little confused. Li Jiang, was it you who saved me? The man opposite replied, It was only a small effort, nothing worth mentioning. If there is anywhere Miss still feels unwell, please tell me clearly. Suddenly she cried out, It's you. Then she grabbed him and pulled him toward her with force. Father, Lai Tran is my savior. I have no way to repay him, so I can only repay him with my body. Hearing those words, Lai Tran was utterly dumbfounded. What? The county magistrate, standing nearby, looked at his daughter excitedly. Zier, do you mean you've taken a liking to young Master Lai Tran? Oh my, this truly is a wondrous fate. My daughter is 17 this year and has reached marriageable age. May I ask how old young Master Lai Tran is? If the two of you are well matched, then this would truly be a heaven-sent union. Finding himself cornered, he stammered awkwardly. Well, this. Then his eyes suddenly landed on the person beside him, and he blurted out, County Magistrate, please don't be angry. There is actually something else Lai Tran wishes to tell you. He quickly grabbed Mac Lam Tom by the shoulders. Actually, Lam Tom and I were married a year ago. We are not brother and sister. Hearing this, even the person dragged into the matter was stunned. Her eyes widened, and her face flushed red with embarrassment. Mary, but when she turned to look at the person beside her, he was winking frantically at her. After a moment, he slowly made up an excuse. This time, because we accidentally made enemies, we had no choice but to conceal our identities and relationship. We hope your excellency will not blame us. At the time, it truly was an act of necessity. After hearing this, Zhang Yunzi fell silent for a moment. Oh, so the two of you are husband and wife. No wonder you were so close. The man opposite said with confidence, Lam Tom and I are already properly married. Given Mrs. current status, for her to marry me would truly be too much of a slight to her. Hearing this, she only laughed and replied, it's all right. Fated to meet, but not fated to be together. Then she turned back into the role of a frail young daughter before the magistrate. Father, since young Master Lai Tran already has someone in his heart, your daughter truly cannot bear to interfere and steal away such affection. But having to miss out on young Master Lai Tran like this, I'm afraid I'll be heartbroken for some time. During this period, please do not arrange any more matches for me. Hearing his daughter say this, he hurriedly agreed. All right. Just focus on recovering. We can discuss that later. The next day, while the two of them were eating, the man opposite suddenly spoke. In truth, this old man had long known that the enemy the two of you are trying to avoid is Chuan Hall. The two across from him immediately grew tense, but the magistrate only continued calmly. Please rest assured, my two benefactors. I have already strictly ordered the household servants to keep your secret. In these past years, most of those hunted down by Chuana Hall have been righteous people who offended them. I believe the two of you are not bad people. It's just that the city is under tight watch at present. If I make too much of a show in preparing for your departure, it will surely attract Chuana Hall's attention. So I ask that you remain in my residence for a few more days. I will certainly see you safely out of the city. Hearing this, Lai Tran immediately saluted. Then we will rely on the county magistrate. Hearing this, the magistrate smiled and replied, Benefactor, there is no need for such courtesy. Oh, after your meal, have Jinshin show you around the rear garden. The magnolias and peonies in bloom, they're especially beautiful right now. Outside, Mac Lam Tom looked at the flowers and could not help sighing in admiration. Wow, I never expected such a small back garden to have so many flowers. Ever since I was little, I've dreamed of having a courtyard like this. In summer, nothing could be better for escaping the heat and easing one's worries. He asked blankly, didn't your family's back garden have flowers and plants? But the other party only sighed. Nursemaid said that when Madame Luke was still alive, she felt that planting such impractical flowers was a waste of land. So she had people turn the back garden into a vegetable patch instead. In summer, they grew leafy greens and string beans, and in winter, they planted Napa cabbage and sweet potatoes. That way, monthly expenses could also be saved. Hearing this, he suddenly cried inwardly, as expected of my mother. Suddenly, an unfamiliar voice rang out. Oh, so the two of you are here. Zhang Yunsi lifted the curtain and stepped out. Seeing who had arrived, he smiled and asked, is Miss feeling any better now? Hearing this, she replied slowly, there's no need to be so formal. You may just call me Yunsi. Then she rushed forward and took Lam Tom's hand. Miss Lam Tom, please don't take it to heart. I truly had my own unspeakable difficulties, which is why I said those things. Hearing this, the person before her was caught completely off guard. Seeing that, the other party slowly explained, actually, I came of age this year. My father has always wanted to marry me off to the son of Chancellor Lu. Lu Lan, Chancellor Lu's son, is a notorious wastrel. Rather than marry him, I'd rather just find some random man and get it over with. Hearing that, he hurriedly tried to persuade her for not far away. Miss, you absolutely must not. Marriage is no trifling matter. The county magistrate dotes on you so much. He would never bear to see you marry someone you do not love. Hearing that, she also hurriedly said, you definitely have to marry someone you truly love. Hearing those words, Zhang Yunsi smiled and replied, After seeing how loving you two are as husband and wife, I made up my mind that I too must marry the person I love. At that, the two suddenly blushed and looked at each other. That night, Lai Tran stared in shock and stammered. What? What is going on here? There was only one bed in front of them. Standing beside him, Mac Lam Tom also blushed. Only one bed. Magistrate Zhang must have assumed we were husband and wife, so he only prepared one room. Hearing this, Lai Tran awkwardly suggested, how about I sleep on the floor? At those words, the person beside him unconsciously clenched her hands into fists and snapped. Forget it. Why you have to promise me you won't have any improper thoughts about me, and you mustn't come too close. We absolutely have to sleep back to back. And this, absolutely, must not be told to anyone. By then, the lamp had been extinguished. The two lay on the same bed, the air thick with embarrassment. The pounding of their hearts rang endlessly in their chests. So this was what it felt like. Lai Tran lay there tossing and turning, trying to hold back his laughter. TSK. He thought to himself that with how stirred up he was, how could he possibly sleep? But every tiny sound reached the ears of the person behind him. Mac Lam Tom said angrily, if you laugh again, I'll hit you. Hearing that, he quickly lowered his voice several notches. Sleep, let's sleep. But not long after, he fell back into the tangled mess in his head. I never expected that running away from home this time would lead to so many strange things. I wonder what exactly has happened at home. The more I think about it, the more it gives me a headache. Suddenly, the person behind him shifted, making him turn his head in puzzlement. But the moment he sat up, the person beside him rolled over. Seeing that, he softly asked, are you cold? Then he lay down and wrapped her tightly in his arms. Early the next morning, birds chirped brightly outside. Still half asleep, she murmured, so heavy. After saying that, she opened her eyes, only to be met head-on by the other person's sleeping face, practically drooling. That sight left him stunned, while the person beside him was in disarray, her clothes rumpled. Then, her earth-shaking scream rang through the room, followed by flustered cries. Ow, hey! In the dining room, the county magistrate looked at him thoughtfully. Young Master Lai Tran, your face. But before he could finish speaking, the person opposite lifted his head. At this moment, he had a bright red handprint on his face and a dark bruise around one eye as well. Seeing everyone looking at him, he awkwardly explained, no, I just accidentally bumped into a wall. Seeing this, Zhang Yunsi could not help but sigh. So our house really does have such strangely shaped walls. Hearing that, the other party burst out laughing. Isn't that so? Meanwhile, the creator of those masterpieces blushed so hard she could not say a word. 3 days later, the county magistrate and his daughter saw the two of them off. In the carriage, Mac Lam Tom lifted the curtain slightly and said wistfully, Magistrate Zhang and Yunsi are both such good people. They not only prepared a carriage for us, but when I left, they even stuffed me with lots of food and travel money. So the outside world isn't as dangerous as Nanny said. There really are many good people out there. Hearing that, Lai Tran said gently, "That's because you're kind-hearted yourself, so the people you meet are all good people too." Hearing this, the person opposite suddenly sighed. Magistrate Zhang is so good to Yunzi. I wonder what my own parents are like. Seeing her worry, the person beside her immediately reassured her, "Don't worry. Your parents must also be very kind people. When they see you, they'll surely be overjoyed." Suddenly, she asked softly, "Lai Tran, what about your parents? I hardly ever hear you mention your family." At the question, he suddenly hesitated. "My father and mother. They both passed away in an accident 6 years ago." Hearing those words, she was startled. The other party slowly continued. "At the time, the household was overwhelmed with business. My father and mother went out to handle some affairs, but on their way home, they ran into bandits. They both. After my parents died, I was raised by my elder brother. All the family's business matters were also handed over to him." Hearing this, she asked in confusion, "You have an elder brother too?" The person before her explained, "My elder brother is 10 years older than me. He isn't someone who smiles or jokes much. After our parents passed away, he became even more mature and reserved. A man not yet 30, yet he often broods like someone in his 40s or 50s. Hearing that, she asked somewhat curiously, "Is your relationship with your elder brother not good?" At this, Lai Tran gave a bitter smile. "My elder brother and I do not share the same mother. He was born to my father's concubine. When I was little, while my parents were busy with business, he was always the one who kept me company. But the older we grew, the more distant he became from me. After our parents died, he grew stricter and harder to understand with every passing day." Suddenly, the neighing of horses drew both their attention. At that moment, the person inside lifted the curtain and softly asked, "Why have we stopped?" The coachman explained, "Young master, there's an old beggar blocking the road ahead." Mac Lam Tom was so frightened that she quickly shrank behind him. Outside, the ragged figure spoke up, "Please, kind sirs, give me a little food." Hearing that, Lai Tran pulled out a bundle and handed it to the coachman. "Take this to him." Suddenly, the sound of galloping hooves rang out without end. A group of men appeared. The man in the lead called out, "Who goes there up ahead?" Seeing who had come, the coachman quickly smiled and said, "Oh my, Deputy Commander Lin, what a coincidence to run into you here today. These two are honored guests of the county magistrate. I was ordered to escort them out of the city." Hearing that, the man opposite said loudly, "So they're the county magistrate's honored guests." Lin was discourteous. In recent days, brigands and mountain bandits have been appearing frequently in the hills near the city. We patrol here every day to ensure the safety of the common people. Please, you two must be especially careful." Then he cast a vicious glance at the beggar and barked, "Where did this beggar come from? Get out of the way and stop blocking our honored guests. Move." The carriage carrying the two of them creaked forward slowly. The beggar still sat there, holding the bundle Lai Tran had given him. Then an irritated voice rang out, Why haven't you scrammed yet? Begging isn't allowed here. Don't let me see you again." In the forest, Mac Lam Tom gazed at the flickering scenery outside, when suddenly the person behind her spoke in a low voice. "Something's wrong." Hearing that, she turned in confusion. He looked at the person beside him and said clearly, word by word, "Lam Tom, don't you think this is strange?" Hearing that, she looked a bit blank. "Strange." He slowly began to analyze it. "How long have we been out of the city?" Hearing that, she looked outside and estimated by the sun that it had been nearly 2 hours. At this, cold sweat broke out on his face. "We are already 30 li away from Shanxi town, and there are no other towns nearby. On such a desolate mountain path, where only patrol troops and the occasional merchant caravan pass by. Why would a beggar appear here?" Hearing this, she was shocked. "You mean?" He cut intensely. "I think there was something wrong with that old beggar. And on top of that, our whole journey has gone far too smoothly. It all feels very strange." After hearing this, the person beside him panicked. "Then what should we do?" At that moment, the person behind her took something out and said clearly, "These are medicinal powders I picked on a mountain last time. At last, they can finally be put to use. I have a plan. We can do this." Then he leaned close and whispered, "That night, in Kamshian Prefecture, the coachman's voice made the air go still. The carriage came to a halt. He stood there looking at the two of them and said, 'Honored guests, this servant can only escort you this far. This place is already 400 li from Shangxi and long beyond the reach of Chuana Hall. Please take care of yourselves.'" Hearing that, Lai Tran said solemnly, "You have worked hard. Please convey to the county magistrate that Lai Tran is deeply grateful for his life-saving kindness." The other party replied, "This servant will certainly pass on the message." Yes. The county magistrate also told me to remind you of something. Then he nervously looked left and right before lowering his voice to continue. Though Kamshuyan is far from Shangxi, it is still hard to avoid the spies and informants of Chuana Hall. You two must be extremely careful and avoid putting yourselves in danger. After hearing the warning, he answered firmly, thank you for the reminder. With that, the other party climbed back into the carriage and left. The two stood there watching the coachman depart. Then he suddenly said, Lam Tom, I think we'd better not stay at an inn. Standing beside him, she asked in puzzlement, Oh, we're not spending the night at an inn. Hearing that, the person before her explained, that beggar from earlier seemed a little strange, and in this city all sorts of people are mixed together. If we've already been targeted, staying here would be no different from inviting disaster. Once they know we're staying at this inn, they'll definitely make their move in the dead of night. As he spoke, he took the bundle from her hands. Hearing that, the person opposite asked uncertainly, Then where do we? But before she could finish, Lai Tran grabbed her hand and hurriedly pulled her away. Follow me. That action left the person behind him blurting out in confusion. The night had grown late. In a ruined temple south of the city, the two now lay back to back on a crude straw bed. Suddenly, a noise sounded outside. A thin tube pierced through the door, and a stream of sleeping smoke was blown into the room. He was pretending to sleep when a shadow slowly stepped inside. Seeing this, the man in black calmly drew his sword. But suddenly, the other party opened his eyes, startling the intruder. At the same moment, Lai Tran hurriedly shouted, Lam Tom, get behind me. Then she quickly threw the needles in her hand forward. Seeing that, the man cursed under his breath. Damn it! Suddenly, something sliced across his hand, leaving a long, bloody gash. Outside, moonlight poured down. Inside, the man in black collapsed to the ground. When he saw that the other party was completely unharmed and even standing there with hands on hips looking at him, he panted in frustration. Seeing this, Lai Tran said contemptuously, didn't expect that, did you? You've been hit by my specially made powder that disperses one's strength. For the next 6 hours, don't even dream of moving. Speak, did Chuana Hall send you? But suddenly, the man grabbed his sword and lunged forward. Go die. That sight made Lai Tran panic inwardly. This is bad. Could it be the dosage wasn't enough? At the same time, another scream rang out. Mac Lam Tom rushed up from behind the man in black, a stick in her hand. Thud! The other party was struck so hard that a lump rose on his head, and he toppled over unconscious. The scene left Lai Tran pale and speechless. After that, Mac Lam Tom looked at the assassin, the fear on her face growing clearer and clearer. Dead? Is he dead? Hearing that, Lai Tran also became flustered and quickly replied in a low voice, Probably. He's just fainted. Receiving that vague answer, she fearfully threw herself into his arms and sobbed hard. Woo-woo, Lai Tran, you scare me to death. After that, the two quickly tied up the man in black and threw him into a dark corner of the ruined temple. Then he looked at the person beside him and gently but seriously instructed, Lam Tom, it's already late. You should hurry and get some rest. I'll keep watch here. There's nothing to worry about. At this moment, he sat by the window, looking out at the quiet darkness. In the still silence, the bound man seemed to gradually regain consciousness as well. Cough. But the other party's eyes snapped open in vigilance. At the same moment, Lai Tran slowly jumped down from the window and muttered in displeasure. Tisich, even if I untied you now, there's no way you could escape. Speak clearly. Who sent you? Hearing this, the man unwillingly let out several bitter, strangled coughs. Cough, cough. I actually fell for the scheme of a brat like you. Truly careless and stupid of me. So it turns out the young master of the Liu family isn't as useless as the rumors made him out to be. Hearing this, Lai Tran immediately grew more alert. You know who I am? You're not from Chuana Hall. Then who exactly are you? The man coughed a few more times and weakly replied, Cough, cough. Liu Lai Tran, young master of the Liu family of Jinan. With such an illustrious and famous identity, how could anyone not know it? At this point, Lai Tran angrily lunged forward, grabbing the other man by the clothes and shouting in fury, Drop the act. Speak. Who exactly sent you? The man in black only looked even more uncomfortable. Cough. Since young Master Liu is so clever, why not try guessing? Who is it that wants to sit in the position of family head, but cannot achieve it because he was born of a concubine? At that, Lai Tran pulled out his short sword and pressed it against the man's throat, grinding out each word in warning. If you dare spout more nonsense, I'll kill you. How dare vermin like you slander my elder brother's good name? But at this moment, the man coughed even more violently. Bright red blood kept spilling from his mouth. Cough, cough. Crimson drops splattered on Lai Tran's hand. At once, the other party was shocked. Not good. Did he swallow poison to kill himself? He immediately let go in alarm. The man opposite slowly continued between weak breaths. Cough, cough. Why, you little brat? Unexpectedly, you do have a kind heart. That powder of yours could clearly have taken my life, but you only used 30% of the proper dosage. Too bad. If you are this merciful, you won't meet a good end in the Liu family. Cough, cough, ha. Since I failed my mission, even if I returned, I still wouldn't escape death. So before I die, I may as well tell you this. Your elder brother, Jiang Yuanhan, has long since laid a heavenly net and earthly snare on the road ahead, waiting for you. Cough, cough. After saying that, he coughed up blood, while the person opposite was thrown into utter confusion. No imposible. You're lying. But the other party merely continued weakly. Once he kills you, he'll be able to inherit it openly and rightfully. Inherit. Before he could finish, he collapsed and breathed his last. Lai Tran was still in inner turmoil, his thoughts in complete chaos. No, you're lying. How can my elder brother want to kill me? Suddenly, a sharp pain struck the back of his neck, and he looked toward the person before blacking out. Mac Lam Tom looked at him with a complicated expression, still holding the piece of wood from earlier. At this moment, Lai Tran slowly stirred awake, bafflement filling his heart. Why on earth does the top of my head hurt so much? But once he became fully awake, he immediately realized that he was tightly bound. Right after that, he turned his head and called softly, full of hope, Lam, Lam Tum. But what met his eyes was Mac Lam Tom, holding a stick pointed straight at him, as she said suspiciously, You, who exactly are you? The other party was flustered and bewildered at this moment. I'm Eli Grektran. But the moment he finished speaking, she shouted angrily, You're lying. Ignoring the way he froze there in stunned confusion, she slowly exposed everything with a tense expression. I heard every word you two just said. You're the young master of the Luke family, aren't you? Speak. What exactly is your purpose? Hearing this, he hurriedly said, Don't get agitated. If there's something to say, let's talk it through clearly. Why is a proper young lady brandishing a wooden stick so fiercely like this? But the other side was already sobbing as she said in a choked voice, Don't talk like that. I'll hit you. But when the stick was just about to swing down, he spilled everything. It's because you claimed to be my fiancé before marriage, yet I knew nothing about it. Besides, I already had another fiancé, and my elder brother never mentioned this at all. I was afraid that if my identity were exposed, it would frighten you, so I had no choice but to keep it hidden. I truly wasn't trying to toy with you on purpose. Hearing this, she was stunned. So that's how it was. But she accidentally let go, and the wooden stick smacked straight onto the other party's head. Ow. Only then did Mac Lam Tom begin to explain. Actually, it was my wet nurse who told me. She said that back then, Madame Luke was overjoyed when she took me in. She thought I was about the same age as the legitimate son of her household. And perhaps in the future, I might even become the daughter-in-law of the Luke family. That's why Madame gave me her green silk jade bracelet, and at the same time instructed the servants of the Feng City estate to treat me like the Luke family's foster daughter and raise me properly until I grew up. After hearing this, the person opposite her was a little puzzled. That jade bracelet, it should have been mine. As he spoke, he tilted his head with a foolishly awkward look. Hearing that, she quietly agreed. Now that I think about it, it really was you. But what I still can't understand is this. Why did wet nurse later say that the head of the Luke family was a cold and merciless devil who loved killing? She also said that since the marriage had already been arranged, the Luke family would soon come to Feng City to escort the bride away and urge me to flee this place as quickly as possible. At this, even the person involved looked confused. Actually, I had never heard before that I had a marriage arrangement, and I also didn't know the Luke family would be coming to Feng City for a wedding procession. There must be something suspicious about this. Why don't I return home first to verify everything clearly, then travel with you to Feng City and get to the bottom of it? Hearing this, the person opposite him nodded in agreement. But suddenly Lai Tran interrupted, looking troubled. Actually, at this moment the other party turned and looked at him blankly. He slowly continued, full of sincerity. I truly didn't mean to deceive you. You shouldn't take this matter too much to heart. Back then, when I suddenly heard that you were my fiancé, and even a runaway fiancé, I felt there were still many things that hadn't been clarified. I was also afraid that if you knew my true identity, you'd misunderstand, so I could only hide it. At this moment, she blushed and stammered softly. And no, it doesn't matter. As long as it's explained clearly, that's enough. But after that, her attention shifted to the man in black. That person is... When asked, the other party only replied coolly and briefly, "He's dead." At this, she cried out in alarm and terror. Dead. Seeing her hiding fearfully behind him, he slowly explained in detail. He bit down on poison and killed himself. Assassins sent out on missions are mostly desperados. Once the mission fails, their lives are forfeit as well. To avoid exposing their master's identity, most of them hide a poison capsule in their molars, so they won't be captured alive and then forced by torture to confess. Lam Tom's gaze now turned more guarded than ever. Was this person here to kill us? The man beside her answered decisively and clearly, "No. To be precise, ever since I encountered Chuena Hall, their target has only been me. The one they want to kill is me." The person opposite him was puzzled. But why would they want to kill you? The other party suddenly fell silent for a while. Then, after a pause, finally spoke heavily. "Before he died, that man told me that it was my elder brother who sent these assassins to kill me." When she heard the answer, she was shocked, speechless. "Your elder brother?" At this moment, Lai Tran slowly recounted the matter, his gaze distant. "I don't believe it. Though he's usually strict, he has always treated me very well. Ever since our parents passed away, my elder brother has shouldered the entire Luke family on his own. He took on countless greedy eyes and bore this responsibility in my place, for the sake of allowing me to smoothly inherit the position of family head in the future. Over these years, he has settled no small number of troubles caused by outside forces. If he really wanted to kill me, why would he wait until now to make his move? I still want to go back and ask him face to face." At this moment, she also agreed and added, "Maybe some ill-intentioned person learned your identity and deliberately tried to sow discord." After hearing that, he nodded in agreement as well. Everything will become clear once we return to the residence. Right now, we need to speed up. We'll set out at dawn tomorrow. I'll go bury this man first." The person beside him promptly said, "I'll go with you." At this moment, in the forest, he was doing his utmost to drag the corpse of the man in black, while the person walking ahead had gone pale with fright. After struggling for a while, the two of them finally finished burying him. Looking at the completed grave, he said lightly in relief, "It's done. Let's tidy up a little and hurry back." Suddenly, a strange noise sounded from behind them. The sound immediately drew her attention. Li Jiang. Hearing his name, the person behind her startled and answered, "Huh." Then she tremblingly pointed toward the green lights in the darkness and said shakily, those glowing green lights. What kind of monster are they?" Then the two of them clung to each other and screamed, "It's a ghost demon. Run." Lam Tom leaned against the eaves and softly asked the person opposite her, "Does this mean we can only walk all the way to Mount Tung too?" Hearing this, Lai Tran replied slowly, "This place is only a little over 200 li from Mount Tung too. If we rode horses, it would only take a day. But the roads are crowded and full of all kinds of people, so it would be hard to avoid being discovered by those people. Right now, we still don't know their true intentions, so it's better to be cautious. We'll go through the northern mountain valley. It's dangerous terrain, but much shorter than the main road. As long as we don't lose our way, we should be able to reach Mount Tung too in about 5 days." Hearing this, she pondered softly. If it's 4 or 5 days, then it seems we should prepare enough provisions first. The person behind her suddenly spoke up. "That won't really be necessary. If we go deeper into the mountain valley, there are a few scattered villages. The local people sell homemade food to supply passing travelers. So on ordinary days, you can also see small merchants hurrying along the road. This mountain path may be narrow and winding, but it connects in all directions. Head north, and it leads straight to Mount Tung Tu. Head south through a stretch of marshy land, and you'll reach Siyuing City." Hearing this, she cried out happily, "Wow, Lai Tran, you really know the roads around here well." Receiving the praise, the other party laughed helplessly. "Really? Lucky diso. Back when I ran away from home, I practically memorized every corner within 300 li around Mount Tung, too." At this moment in the forest, he attentively supported the person behind him. "We've already been walking for 2 shurchen. Are you tired? Do you need to rest a bit?" At this moment, she was panting as she hurriedly answered, "I'm fine. Let's go a little farther." Suddenly, a cry sounded from the distance. The sound immediately drew the attention of the two of them. Only then did Lam Tom speak. "It sounds like a woman calling for help." The person beside her hurriedly said. The voice came from that direction. "Come, let's go over and take a look." The rustling sounds continued without stop. A hand pushed aside the branches. Her face covered in sweat, but then her expression turned alarm. As she rushed forward, she cried out, "Over here!" Then she quickly helped the person up. But when she saw the other person's face clearly, she was shocked. "Nate Ypsilon na? Where did you end up here?" After checking her over, He raised his head and looked upward. She must have slipped and fallen from above. Then, hoisting her onto his shoulder, he urged. This time, Nhayat Waina fell hard. It's unclear whether her internal organs were injured. We don't have enough medicine left on us, so we need to move quickly and find the nearest village ahead to get treatment. At this moment, in a small house, a little girl was sitting there watching some chicks when suddenly a voice called out, "Tiu Tum." Hearing the voice, the little girl looked toward where it came from. At the same time, Lai Tran walked while carrying the injured person and said to her, "We're almost there." At this moment, inside the house, a woman was busily at work when suddenly a voice called, "Mother, mother, we have guests." Hearing that, she hurried out and saw her daughter standing beside two people. Seeing this, he spoke. "My friend accidentally fell off a cliff and was injured. She needs treatment. May I ask, madam, is there a medical clinic nearby? Or if not, could you sell us some medicinal herbs?" Hearing this, the woman opposite him said, "Our village is tiny. Where we get a clinic from? But on this mountain, there is a scholar who makes a living selling medicine. Whenever anyone here gets headaches or a fever, we all go to him for treatment. You could try going up the mountain to look for him." After hearing this, the other party replied, "Many thanks, madam. Sorry to trouble you." After a while, Mac Lam Tom peered inside with a searching gaze. Only after a moment did she step in. "Excuse me, is anyone here?" Hearing the voice, the person inside removed the book covering his face. Then he looked toward the doorway. Inside the room, after finishing taking the pulse, the other party slowly said, "She was only knocked unconscious from the impact. Since her bones aren't injured, it's not too serious. However, when I examined her, I found traces of cuts from a sharp sword on this young lady's body." Hearing this, he was startled. A sharp sword? The man before him then pulled up her sleeve. Seeing that, he looked alarmed. "We parted from this friend several days ago, then suddenly found her unconscious in the cave ahead. I'm afraid something must have happened on the road." Hearing this, the scholar fell into thought. There have always been bandits in these mountains over the past few years. Perhaps she encountered robbers and was injured. However, the two of you needn't worry. They're only superficial wounds. I've already applied medicine, so I think there shouldn't be anything further to worry about. Hearing this, he hurriedly thanked him. "Many thanks, doctor, for saving her life." The man smiled and said, "I dare not accept the title of doctor. I'm only a poor and humble scholar. I failed the examinations for many years, so to make a living I stayed here and took up gathering and selling herbs. You needn't be so polite. Just call me Tanwai." After one Shurchin, Nhayat Waina gradually woke up as well. Seeing this, she cried out happily, "Nhayat Waina, you've finally woken up." The moment she saw the person in front of her, tears burst forth from the other woman's eyes. "Lamtum, boo-hoo, lamtum. I thought I'd never see you again. You scare me to death. Boo-hoo-hoo." Hearing this, she too teared up and replied, "Don't cry, don't cry. It's all right now. Here, drink some hot water." As she spoke, she poured water for the other woman. After taking a sip, the person opposite her began to explain, "Half a day after leaving the city, we ran into Chuanha Hall's people. They had already set up an ambush on the road early on. Young Master was badly wounded while trying to save me and Madam. Quite a few of our accompanying guards died too. In the end, Young Master and Madam. It was Young Master who risked his life to hold them back and told me to hurry back to inform you. Young Master said that the two of you absolutely must not go up Mount Tung too." These words made her cover her mouth in shock. "What?" The person opposite her slowly continued. "Those people from Chuanha Hall were most likely sent by the Luke family of Tran Nam. Their purpose was to take your lives. If you go to Mount Tung 2 now, it'll be no different from walking straight into a trap." At the same time, his face turned pale, and inwardly he thought, "Elder brother." Then, anger rising, he clenched his fist and muttered, "Elder brother." Suddenly, he hesitated before asking, "Then, what about Young Master Taini and Madam?" At this moment, Nhayat Waina said softly, "Young Master and Madam. I'm afraid the chances are slim." At this point, irritation surged in his heart as he thought, "Jiang Yuanhan, what exactly are you trying to do?" At this moment, Tan Wai was outside brewing medicine. Mac Lam Tom looked at the person before her and said, "The most important thing right now is still to recuperate properly. Madam and Young Master Taini are blessed by fate. Once you're better, we'll go look for them together. I'm not badly injured. Once my wounds heal, I still have to return to Persia to report the news. Now that you know the danger of Mount Tung 2, my mission can be considered complete." Just then, a figure entered. "Sorry to disturb you." The voice immediately drew Nhayat Waina's attention. At this moment, he came in carrying a bowl of medicine. "The young lady is awake. You should drink this while it's still hot." Suddenly, the other party's face flushed red, as if she had eaten chili peppers. At this moment, Nhayat Waina stared blankly at the man before her, secretly marveling in her heart. Heavens, this man. He's far too handsome. He's really too handsome. I knew it. I absolutely must marry him. My own young master is already very handsome, but this man is several times more delicate and refined. The atmosphere suddenly fell silent, and her gaze stayed fixed on Tanwai, saying this, Maklamtam kalet wadiden ina. But the person before her was still immersed in her chaotic thoughts. He's so beautiful, completely my type. I absolutely must bring him back to Persia and make him my husband. Then she suddenly snapped out of it and blushed. Ha, it's nothing. I'll drink the medicine. After that, she quickly drank the bowl of medicine he had just prepared. The moment she tasted a little, Nhayat Waina frowned. Ugh, it's so bitter. Suddenly, a hand offered her a piece of candy. Here, eat this candy, and it won't taste bitter anymore. Seeing this, the other party's face flushed crimson in embarrassment. Tanwai's voice rang out slowly. The young lady's chi and blood are weakened from her injuries, and she also fell from a height. Her 5 viscera all suffered slight damage. These wounds are not life-threatening, but if they aren't treated properly, I'm afraid they may leave behind chronic illness in the future. The girl sitting beside her also spoke up. That's right, Nhayat Waina. Good medicine is naturally bitter. If you keep drinking it, you'll recover more quickly. Lai Tran also hurriedly added, that's right, even though you're anxious to return and report the news, it's still better to recover from your injuries first before setting out. Hearing this, the person on the bed blushed and burst out from under the covers. Of course, I have to recover properly before going back. But before she could keep up that fierce momentum for long, she swayed and said in a tearful voice, otherwise, in my current condition, I'd probably die on the road before even making it back to Persia. Hearing this, he looked somewhat puzzled. Judging by the strength you just used, young lady, your injuries seem almost healed already. At this, the person opposite felt a little dead inside. Oh, no totol. Didon, just look at how energetic I seem. Actually, cough, I'm badly injured. The atmosphere fell silent once more. Lai Tran was calmly packing up their luggage when Mac Lam Tom suddenly pushed open the door and walked in. As soon as he saw who had come, he immediately asked, how is Nhayat Waina? Hearing that, she replied, she just took her medicine and has fallen asleep. Young Master Tan, Wai is watching over her right now. I've just heated up some steam buns. Eat them while they're hot. I already begged young Master Tan, Wai to look after Nhayat Waina in my place. Young Master Tan Wai said that once Nhayat Waina recovers a little more, he'll find a carriage to send her back to Persia. Shall we set out tomorrow morning? When asked, the other person's expression darkened slightly. We'll leave tomorrow morning. However, we probably can't go back to Mount Tungtu anymore. Hearing this, the person beside him was shocked. Not going? Why are we suddenly not going to Mount Tungtu anymore? At this point, he slowly began to explain. At first, I didn't believe a single word that black-clad assassin said. But everything I've seen and heard on the road has shown me that the Luke family may not be what I've always believed it to be. Eldest brother may very well have been secretly doing cruel and immoral things behind my back. At first, I didn't believe any of it. These people aren't related to me in any way, so perhaps they were only trying to stir up trouble on purpose. After hesitating for a moment, he continued, but even young Master Taini had Waina risk her life to send us a warning, telling us to be careful of the Luke family. Young Master Taini and his wife are both kind people. The fact that they did everything they could to get Waina back to warn us about the danger in the Luke family definitely wasn't some joke. At this moment, he stared blankly up at the ceiling, then suddenly turned to her. If I were alone, I wouldn't mind risking my life to go back and demand the truth. But I absolutely cannot let you be dragged into a prison. At that moment, Lai Tran said quietly, I absolutely cannot let you put yourself in danger. Hearing those words, Mac Lam Tom was inwardly startled. Then the other person softly added, acting rashly like this is far too dangerous. It would be better if we don't return to Mount Tungtu for the time being. She asked softly, but if we want to go back to Mount Tungtu, wouldn't we still have to pass through Tungkwa town? Sooner or later, we'd still run into people from Chuena Hall. Only then did he explain more clearly. My second brother has always lived in seclusion in the bamboo forest west of Mount Tungtu. We can go there and seek shelter under his protection. Second brother will surely have a way to investigate the truth of this matter. The person beside him cried out in surprise. You even have a second brother? Seeing her stunned expression, he answered calmly, "That's right. But ever since first mother passed away, second brother has stayed in the bamboo forest keeping vigil for her and has never returned home, so we brothers rarely meet." Those words made her even more astonished. First mother? Could it be that you brothers aren't full brothers either? Lytran's face grew troubled as he said, "First mother was the first principal wife father married. I heard that later she developed mental problems and injured several servants. Father flew into a rage and sent her away to live in a separate estate. From then on, second brother went with her and lived there as well." After hearing that, she guessed softly, "So you three brothers weren't born of the same mother?" He could not help sneering. It's all because my father was a romantic when he was young. Eldest brother was born from my father's affair with a woman from a pleasure house. After she became pregnant, my grandfather made father marry her to preserve the Luke family's reputation. Because Madame Jiang came from such a low background, grandfather wouldn't even let eldest brother be entered into the family register. He didn't even take the surname Luke. I heard that Madame Jiang was also ill-fated. She died right after giving birth to eldest brother. After that, eldest brother was raised by the old steward with the utmost devotion. After hearing this strange story of the Luke family, she couldn't help feeling overwhelmed. This relationship is far too complicated, isn't it? Suddenly, the person before her interrupted. But later, father met my mother, and she kept him under such strict control that he obediently listened to her and stopped flirting all over the place. Father used to say that I was mischievous from childhood and far too much like him. He said no one would ever be able to keep me in line. But my mother said that one day, I too would meet a girl like her. Hearing this, she suddenly froze, her face flushing red, while the person beside her looked at her with gentle eyes and continued, "Someone who would make me obediently listen." At that moment, Mac Lam Tom's face turned crimson. I'll go pack our things first." 3 days later, the two of them walked on with trembling bodies and ragged breaths. At last, they had arrived. Looking at the scene before her, she couldn't help sighing in admiration. Wow, this place really is like a paradise hidden from a world. Hearing her praise, he said excitedly, "Beautiful, right? When I ran away from home as a child, I came here before. Come on, second brother should be there. Let's go in and have a look." After only a few steps, he suddenly stopped in surprise. A familiar figure appeared in the distance, climbing a ladder to pick fruit. It was Luke Trakedew. The moment he saw him, he called out excitedly, "Second brother." The man with the tear mole turned at the sound. Little Tran." His face lit up with joy as he called back. Suddenly, his foot slipped off the ladder, and his expression changed at once. His body tilted backward. "Oh no!" Inside the room, a hand slowly poured more tea. Luke Trakedew leisurely brewed tea as he slowly said, "Back then, you got angry with father and ran away from home to my place. Who would have thought that in less than half a month you'd be dragged back? And now, after that parting, so many years have passed without us meeting." Hearing the man opposite him say this, Lytran scratched his head awkwardly and replied with embarrassment, "After I was dragged back that time, father punished me by making me kneel facing the wall in the ancestral hall for a whole month. After that, he stationed all sorts of servants to watch me. Aside from going to the latrine, there was even someone guarding the door to my bedroom. For a whole year, I didn't even get to set foot in the town at the foot of Mount Tung Tu." Suddenly, the person opposite him prompted, "And later?" At this, he suddenly grew dejected and said sadly, "Then later, father and mother met with disaster. After they were gone, second uncle and third uncle from the clan saw that I was still young and wanted to seize the entire Luke family fortune. At that time, I was forced by eldest brother to begin managing the Luke family's canal shipping business. For the next several years, I practically never went anywhere again." At that, Luke Trakedew suddenly let out a heavy sigh. The Luke family has a great estate, and those clan elders are all crafty and dangerous men. Back then, little brother was still so young. If not for eldest brother, I'm afraid the Luke family's property would have changed hands long ago. At this, Lytran suddenly clenched his fists. "Second brother." Luke Trakedew was startled by the call, and the other man asked hesitantly, "In your eyes, what kind of person is eldest brother?" Hearing this, he was somewhat surprised. "What kind of person?" Lytran slowly continued. "This time, I encountered many things outside, and all of them seemed to be closely connected to eldest brother." He only replied calmly, "Because Madame Jiang was of low birth, eldest brother was never valued by grandfather. He became mature and steady very early in life. In order not to anger father or grandfather, he never asked for anything and worked extremely hard at everything he learned. At a young age, he was already helping father manage all the canal shipping business throughout Jiangnan. So what exactly happened? Why are you suddenly bringing up eldest brother?" At this, Lai Tran cut in softly. Half an hour later, after hearing everything, Luke Drake cried out in shock. No, absolutely impossible. Lai Tran continued calmly. I also hope that all of this is false. But everything we've encountered on the road points straight at eldest brother. Suddenly, Luke Drake cut him off. I think someone is definitely trying to drive a wedge between us brothers. Though eldest brother may be rigid in his thinking, he has always devoted himself wholeheartedly to you and to planning for the Luke family. But at this moment, Lai Tran gazed absent-mindedly outside. Is eldest brother really that kind of person? Second brother, there's actually something I've never understood. When father and mother died, given your status, you should have returned to inherit the position of family head. Why didn't you come back then? At this, Luke Drake stiffened. Actually, back then, rather than saying mother was sent here to repent for her mistakes, it would be more accurate to say that father had become utterly disappointed by what she had done and wanted her to remain here for the rest of her life. At this point, he raised his voice and called out, "Hi, Ni, quickly bring me the sandalwood box from the study." Soon, a figure entered carrying the box. He quickly took out a sheet of paper and said, "In truth, not long after mother and I came here, father ignored grandfather's objections and wrote this letter of repudiation." Taking the letter, he quickly opened it to read. He couldn't help but feel shocked. It was indeed father's handwriting. Luke Drake spoke again in a sorrowful voice, but the steward at the Luke residence only told people that first mother was punished and sent to this little bamboo retreat to recuperate and reflect because her mind had become unstable and she had injured a few maids. He never mentioned that father and first mother had long since severed their marital ties. Naturally, the Luke family could not go around publicly announcing such a shameful matter. My mother was a woman of exceedingly proud temperament. Back then, because she couldn't stand seeing father and one of the maids in his chambers exchanging flirtatious glances, she committed a terrible wrong in a fit of anger and secretly killed that maid. Later, when father found out, he was furious and drove us to this place. At this, Lai Tran suddenly asked, "But how could something like that be known to outsiders?" So to everyone else, it was said that mother had come here to recuperate because of mental problems. But you are still a legitimate son of the Luke family. Father couldn't possibly erase your name from the family register. After father died, didn't eldest brother come to find you? At that moment, Luke Drake stiffened, but after only a few seconds, his mood sank again. After mother died, eldest brother came here once. He told me to stay here peacefully and observe mourning for mother, and that the Luke family would not let me lack food or clothing. The so-called eldest brother had then slowly said, "As for the position of Luke family head, you'd best give up any foolish hopes. But if you harbor any delusions you shouldn't, then even this place will no longer have room for you." Luke Drake had been only a young boy at the time, and hearing those words, he had frozen on the spot. At the same time, Lai Tran gritted his teeth and said indignantly, what he meant was that he wanted to completely cut off your path to inheriting the position of Luke family head. Luke Drake only sighed and said, "Eldest brother and I were never close." But in his heart, he had always hoped that you would inherit the position of family head. If that weren't the case, he wouldn't have come here on purpose to warn me, forcing me to completely give up that thought. Eldest brother is a man who respects propriety and rules. He knows he is not a legitimate son, so he follows the teachings left by the Luke ancestors and merely helps you manage the Luke family estate. But suddenly another voice cut in. "Second brother, is it really as you say?" At this, he fell silent, and only after a brief few seconds did he say, "Little Tran, in truth, aside from choosing to trust eldest brother, we simply don't have the power to stand against him." Just then, Haini appeared. "Young master, the meal has all been prepared." Hearing that, his eyes lit up and he hurriedly said, "Fine then, this matter needs longer discussion. You all haven't eaten yet, have you? I've had Haini prepare a simple meal. This morning I went into the bamboo grove and picked some fresh bamboo shoots. I also had Haini stew a pot of delicious braised meat. Life in the mountains is rather plain. There's no fish or rich delicacies here. I wonder whether you'll be used to it." 2 hours later, a hand lightly touched the flowers. Mac Lam Tom looked excitedly at the little blossoms. Just then, Luke Drake happened to pass by. He noticed the movement outside, and his eyes widened at once. Unaware of this, she softly said, "These petals are truly beautiful." A voice suddenly came from behind her. "I planted these camellias myself. I don't know why, but this year they've bloomed especially brilliantly." Hearing that, she turned in surprise to look in that direction. Ichem, seeing her like that, he quickly continued, "I was just busy discussing family matters with little Tran and completely forgot to greet you, Mississippi. That was truly rude of me. "Are you the maidservant attending at little Trana's side?" At once, she hurried to introduce herself. I'm Mak Lam Tum, Li Jiang Shekalo for then. As she spoke, she stepped forward. Hearing her introduction, he greeted her softly. "Miss Lam Tam, I am Luke Trake Du, Lai Trana's second brother. May I ask how old you are this year, Miss Lam Tom? Do you already have someone in your heart?" Suddenly, a voice cut in. "No." A figure at once stepped between the two of them. Lai Tran stammered in panic. "As second brother, Lam Tom, and I have a childhood betrothal arranged by my late mother. The two of us are now of one heart and are about to be married. This time, I specially brought her here for second brother to meet." Then he turned to the person behind him. "Lam Tom, isn't that right?" But her face turned bright red. Why you? Are you telling the truth?" Hearing this, Luke Trake Du looked a little stunned, then burst out laughing. "So that's how it is. Miss Mac, I was the rude one." Hearing those words, Mac Lam Tom became even more flustered. And no, there's no need to apologize. Just then, a pigeon flew over. It quickly landed on his hand. As soon as he opened the message and read it, his expression suddenly darkened. Then he unconsciously crushed the letter in his hand. The sight left the two people before him dumbfounded, and only then did Lai Tran speak. "Second brother, did something happen?" Realizing he had let his emotions show, he froze for a few seconds. No, nothing at all. "Oh, right. I had Heine go to the front yard to pick some fresh, heavenly peaches. Would you like to try some?" Luke Trake Du hurriedly changed the subject. The moment the two of them heard there was food, their eyes lit up as they said in unison, "Heavenly peaches?" But then he suddenly looked at the person beside him and abruptly reached out to hold her hand. The action startled her, and she turned her head to look at him. He suddenly spoke in embarrassment. Then, there's a step up ahead. Why you have to be careful not to trip." Hearing those words, the person facing him blushed deeply. Then she replied shyly, "Understood." At this moment, Heine stepped forward and said, "Young master, the heavenly peaches have been served." Looking at the plump, heavenly peaches, Lai Tran immediately picked one up and took a huge bite. After tasting it, he praised it lavishly. "So good. Second brother, do you even have peach trees where you live?" Hearing the question, the man opposite only smiled and replied, "All I have here are a few fruits and seasonal vegetables. You came so suddenly that I had no time to prepare anything. This little bamboo retreat lies deep in the mountains and forests. Outsiders rarely come, and there are even fewer traveling merchants here." Hearing this, he said, "It's fine. Lam Tom and I have already suffered plenty on the road. To have a meal like this already makes us very satisfied." Suddenly, Lai Tran seemed to remember something. "Second brother, living in such a remote place, daily food and supplies must be quite inconvenient, right?" Hearing the question, Luke Trake Du slowly explained further, "There are plenty of villas in the mountains around here, so it's not as if I'd starve. Every month, the Luke family sends servants up the mountain with some meat and fish. As for vegetables and wild greens, I have to go into the forest and pick them myself fairly often." At that, Lai Tran suddenly pictured his second brother sitting in front of a carrot with tears streaming down his face. "Bulkoi, rhubarb." Then he cried out in surprise, In any case, Lam Tom and I are free. For the next few days, let us go up the mountain and help you gather some vegetables." As he spoke, he even slapped the table to show how determined he was. The person beside him also had tears in her eyes after hearing the story. Hearing that, Luke Trake Du did not refuse. "Wonderful." Then he handed the person in front of him a large basket. Not letting them wait long, he promptly shooed them out. On the eastern side of the mountain, there's a large bamboo forest. Go pick some bamboo shoots and bring them back. Go on, hurry. Let's go, let's go." As the two of them headed into the mountain, a voice suddenly called out, "Young master." Heine hurried over at once. "Wait, this is the food and drink second young master told me to prepare. Young master said the mountain paths are hard to walk. So he told you both to be extra careful and try to go early and return early to the villa." Her expression then turned dark. "Master, I've already sent the young master and Miss Lam Tom out. That person probably won't be coming back for the moment." After hearing that, he said coolly, "Prepare at once." The other party hesitated a little. "But, master, are you sure?" Before she could finish, the man opposite only gave a bitter smile. Then he said slowly, "What is meant to come will come eventually, won't it?" Inside the bamboo forest, the two were intently picking bamboo shoots. But Lai Tran suddenly felt uneasy. "Lam Tom, you only secretly agreed with second brother just now because you had no choice, right? Second brother is such an outstanding person. Could it be that you..." Thinking this, he couldn't help speaking. "Lam Tom." Hearing him call, she startled and quickly looked over. The person before her asked awkwardly in a low voice, Why you? What do you think of my second brother? At that moment, Mac Lam Tom's mind stalled a little, and she repeated, second brother. Second young master is such a gentle person and so talented and learned. Being around him really puts people at ease. Her words struck him like thunder. It's over. Luke Lytran, you've already lost right at the starting line. He suddenly remembered being knocked on the head as a child. You little brat, if you haven't memorized your lessons today, don't even think about eating. Then flustered, he continued, so, you also like someone who understands propriety and is highly learned? As someone like second brother? Mac Lam Tom's face immediately flushed bright red. Huh? At that, he wailed inwardly. It's over, I'm done for. That reaction is practically an admission. Seeing how dejected and disappointed he looked, she stared blankly, not understanding what was going on. Then she whispered softly, the one I like is you idiot. After a while, the person before her suddenly called out, Lam Tom, have some loquats. I just saw a loquat tree by the stream. Lam Tom, drink some water. The spring water over there is cool and sweet, really refreshing. I specially scooped some up for you. Lam Tom, do I look deep and reserved like this? Harassed to no end, her expression turned awful as she thought. What is he doing now? Leaning against a tree trunk, he went on, then what about this? Do I look like someone refined and highly learned now? But no answer came. He looked behind him in confusion. Lam Tom. When he saw she had already walked away, he panicked. While Lam Tom, wait for me. At this moment, Lai Tran sighed as he picked bamboo shoots, feeling more and more aggrieved and annoyed inside. Lam Tom actually left without waiting for me. She still hasn't answered my question. Then he stood up. Looking around for her, he called, Lam Tom? Not far away. Mac Lam Tom was leaning against a tree trunk, fast asleep. Seeing this, he murmured, she actually fell asleep? The sight made his heart pound wildly, and his feet unconsciously stepped forward. When he reached her side, his face reddened even more, and his hand unconsciously reached out. Suddenly, the person before him woke with a start and shouted in alarm. Who is it? At that, the person beside her lost his balance and fell backward. Ow! The scene made her go pale, but a few seconds later, she burst out laughing at the bump on his head. Ha ha ha. Meanwhile, he flushed red in embarrassment. Then she finally said, just now, I accidentally drifted off to sleep like that. It's getting late now. We should head back. Hearing this, Lai Tran jolted and looked over, smiling brightly. But when they returned to the little bamboo house, he was stunned. What met his eyes was utter chaos. And in shock he thought, Suddenly, several darts flew toward them. Seeing this, he shouted anxiously, watch out. At that exact moment, Luke Trake Du appeared, sword in hand, and swiftly knocked all the darts aside. Then he rushed forward and drove his sword straight through the chest of a black-clad assassin. With a scream of pain, the man collapsed and died. At that moment, the person behind him cried out in alarm. Second brother, what on earth happened? Luke Trake Du's face was deathly pale, blood staining the corner of his lips, as he said, Go, both of you, hurry. Eldest brother has sent assassins after us. Hearing that, the other party froze. What? Luke Trake Du continued. A scout just sent word by carrier pigeon that the men eldest brother dispatched were already on their way. I thought they had only come to hunt you down, so I tried to get you both out of the way. I never imagined. Eldest brother would even intend to kill me as well. Then he hurriedly turned away. Little Tran, second brother, is afraid. I won't be able to protect you anymore. Hearing this, Lai Tran unconsciously clenched his fists. Bastard, but Luke Trake Du cut him off. The assassins will come back. This place is no longer safe. Go down the mountain at once and follow the Easter Trail. I've already told Hai Ni to wait at the foot of the mountain to help you. But a voice suddenly interrupted. We're going together. Luke Trake Du only gave a bitter smile. I still haven't properly put away my mother's keepsakes and memorial tablet. She lived her whole life alone with nowhere to belong. After death, at the very least, she should have me, her unfilial son, by her side to keep her company and spare her from loneliness. But Lai Tran immediately rushed up and grabbed his hand, saying firmly, then we'll go get them together. Seeing that stubborn hand gripping him so tightly, he only said lightly, it's too dangerous. You two go first. I'll catch up soon after. Honey knows this area well. In a little while, she'll circle around the small path behind the mountain and meet me there. Hearing that, the other party still looked worried and unwilling. Second brother, but he gently reassured them, don't worry. Your second brother still has enough skill to protect himself. Only then did the person opposite relent. Then we'll wait for you behind the mountain and meet up there. Take care, second brother. Deep in the dense forest, rustling sounds rang out without end, making the air tense. Lai Tran hurriedly pulled Mac Lam Tom along as they ran. At the same time, urgent shouting sounded from behind them. They're over there. After them. Hearing that, she looked back in fear and said, "Someone's chasing us." Hearing this, he urged her on at once. Quick! But then the two of them reached a cliff edge, and a cracked stone tumbled straight down. Seeing this, he cursed inwardly in despair. Damn it, there's no way out. At that moment, the sound of horses' hooves thundered from behind them. The two immediately became alert. The leader, dark-faced and smug, sneered, "Ha ha, let's see where you can run now." The sight threw him into panic. There was no retreat left. The river below. If they jumped, they would probably be swept directly downstream. At the same time, the man opposite spoke up. "Luke Lytran, don't delude yourself into thinking you can escape by jumping off the cliff. Within 5 li of here, all our men are stationed. What chance do you think you have of escaping the pursuit of Kwanha Hall if you jump? You won't walk out of this place alive." Hearing that, he suddenly fell silent, then looked at the person beside him. "Lam Tum." At his call, she turned toward him, only for him to lift her face and press a kiss to her lips. "I'm sorry, even though I've wanted to do this to you for a long time. I only managed to make up my mind now." Then Lai Tran swiftly shoved her into the water. Inside, he told himself, "You must survive." Mac Lam Tom's body sank into the current, her dazed eyes staring at the person standing on the cliff above. Tears spilled from her eyes as she screamed in her heart, "Lai Tran." After doing that, Lai Tran slowly said, "I." Then he looked at the people behind him, tears rolling down his face, pain written all over him. Seeing this, the leader spoke slowly. "I'm afraid he never intended to leave here alive." At the same time, Lai Tran drew his sword, took up a fighting stance, and shouted, "Come on." Suddenly, chaotic cries rose from below the cliff. "Oh no, I can't swim. Help!" Hearing this, his face turned pale and he froze like stone. Inwardly, he thought in despair, I completely forgot about that." Hearing the cries, the man opposite laughed in contempt and mocked him. "Well now, even with death staring you in the face, you're still thinking of playing the hero and saving a beauty? So the Luke family young master truly is no ordinary man. Brothers, charge." But at that moment, a sharp sound tore through the air, and an arrow pierced straight through the leader's chest. His body fell, and he died on the spot. The scene threw the remaining men into confusion, and they shouted, "Who was that? Boss!" While they were panicking, Lai Tran also raised his guard and shouted loudly, "Who's there?" At the same moment, rustling sounds came from the forest, drawing closer and closer. The louder the sound grew, the tenser he became. His hand tightening on the weapon he held as he shouted, "Come out!" Then a youth appeared. It was Tam Quan Bao, and he called out hurriedly, "Young master, I finally found you." I'm exhausted, completely exhausted. Seeing who it was, he abruptly went still. "Gukwun Bao, why are you here?" But then his face turned pale in alarm. Could it be eldest brother? Could it be he came with you too? The more he spoke, the more nervous Lai Tran became. As soon as he finished, a figure appeared behind him. "You rotten brat, I've finally found you." Seeing the newcomer, he immediately cried out in alarm, "Eldest brother." Over here, Heine hurriedly reported, "Master, I found Lam Tom at the foot of the cliff, but there was no sign of Luke Lai Tran." Hearing this, Luke Drake said suspiciously, "You couldn't find him?" The person outside quickly continued, "Not only that, but the assassins we sent out have all gone silent as well. Something must be wrong here. To avoid trouble later, perhaps we should," but before she could finish, he cut her off. "Do not panic. If we act now, we may alert Jiang Yuan on. We will wait here. Luke Lai Tran's martial arts are mediocre. He cannot possibly escape Kwanha Hall's pursuit." But the other party anxiously said, "But master, fifth uncle and hall masters will have been waiting restlessly for news from our side. If there is no confirmation that Luke Lai Tran is dead, they may turn on us at any moment. At this point, there is no need to discuss it further. We first have to find Luke Lai Tran." On the other side, Mac Lam Tom lay covered in mud when Heine suddenly remembered her. "Right, master, the girl who was with Lai Tran. What should we do with her?" When asked, he answered coldly, "She is useless now. Dispose of her." At that moment, Mac Lam Tom was drifting in and out of consciousness. My head hurts." And she groggily opened her eyes. At the same moment, she saw Heine. The other woman also seemed to notice that the person on the bed had awakened. From behind, a voice called out, "Miss Heine." The person in front turned her head, while Mac Lam Tom struggled to sit up and said with difficulty, "I." When questioned, the other woman merely replied coldly, "HM, I didn't expect you to wake up so quickly." But then she swiftly drew a dagger. "Why don't you try dying one more time?" At this, the woman before her widened her eyes in terror. Wait. Over here, Luke Drake stared vacantly at his teacup when a voice suddenly sounded. "Master." Heine had just entered and briskly reported, "Those people have already been dealt with. So should we continue to remain still and wait for news?" He said nothing, but when he noticed the blood on her hands, he tossed her a handkerchief and said lightly, "Wipe it clean. You loathe the smell of blood." Hearing that, she obediently did as told. "Oh yes." After finishing, she said, "Master, why wait for fifth uncle and Kwanha Hall to act? Why not take the chance and directly get rid of Luke Lytran at that little bamboo house? Wouldn't that have been better?" Hearing this, the man opposite simply said calmly, "Jiang Yuanhan has always been searching for him. Sooner or later, he would track him here. Since fifth uncle is willing to work with us to eliminate Luke Lytran, why should I refuse such a convenient scapegoat?" Heine frowned in displeasure when she heard that. "Even if we were discovered, so what? We have been secretly recruiting and quietly consolidating our power all this time. With fifth uncle and hall master helping us, even taking it by force would not necessarily end in defeat." Hearing those words, Luke Trake-Du only gave a faint, cold laugh. "You really have underestimated him." Then he sipped the bitter tea in his mouth before continuing slowly. "Do you think Jiang Yuanhan is only capable of this much? If Jiang Yuanhan could be brought down by just Kwanha Hall and Fifth Master Luke, then the Luke family would have changed hands a year my father died. Since childhood, he has always been the one who followed the rules most strictly, rigid as an old pedant. Then his beloved third brother was unfortunately killed by assassins, and he himself was not the legitimate son of the Luke family by birth. What else could he do? He had no choice but to push me into that position. No matter how unwilling he was, he had no other option. So all we need to do is wait for Luke Lytran to die. Why invite trouble upon ourselves?" Hearing that, the other party seemed uneasy and worried. But Luke Lytran is currently missing, and even the men Kwanha Hall sent out have now. Before she could finish, he cut her off at once. "He won't escape. Luke Li Jiang moot die. He must." Suddenly, an urgent voice called from outside. "Second brother." His gaze immediately turned suspicious. "Luke Jack Ju. At the same time, Heine cried out in panic, "Luke Lytran? Why has he come back?" The man opposite was still too shocked to believe what he had just heard. Then he said slowly, "The plan has changed. Go and bring the 7-step powder here." "You." Hearing this, the other party looked blank and confused. Then the air fell silent, with only his unwavering stare remaining. At that moment, in another residence, furious shouting rang out. "Get out! This is all because of a rebellious son like you. How could I possibly have given birth to such a useless child? Get out of here at once." Outside in the corridor, Luke Trake-Du's face was streaked with tears. At that time, he was only a young boy, sitting alone in a corner. Suddenly, a figure appeared. "So, I finally found the young master." Madam was only upset for a moment, so her words came out rather hurtfully. "Please don't take it to heart. Madam knows she hurt the young master's feelings, so she specially sent this servant to bring some pastries to cheer you up." Carrying a small basket, Heine spoke softly. His eyes had once been clear and pure, but now they held unreadable thoughts. Then he turned and said slowly, "Go. This is the last thing I need you to do. Don't disappoint me." Just then, Lytran rushed in from outside. "Second brother." He quickly stepped out as well, then put on a look of surprise. "Li Jiang, foolish boy, why did you run back here?" The other hurriedly replied, "Lam Tom and I ran into pursuers from Kwanha Hall on the road, so we had no choice but to split up and flee. I wandered through these deep mountains for hours before shaking them off, so I came back on purpose to see whether you had escaped safely." Hearing this, Luke Trake-Du hurriedly said, "What? We need to save Lam Tom at once." Lytran nodded in agreement. Now that I know second brother is safe, I'm relieved. I'll go look for her right away." At that moment, the other man's gaze flicked toward the tea table, and something flashed in his eyes. Then he quickly said, "Wait, you've been running around for so long. Have some tea and rest first. Though the situation is urgent, in times like this, we must prepare thoroughly. Let me send secret agents into the mountain in disguise to scout the situation first, and then we'll decide what to do." As he spoke, he pushed the teacup forward. When the other took it, anticipation suddenly appeared in his eyes. Then, just as he had been tense, he abruptly relaxed. "All right, then I'll follow your advice, brother. I'll wait here for a moment while you go make the arrangements." The other person then walked past him, but the person behind him asked darkly, "Why?" His furious eyes fixed on the man before him. Yet tears of disappointment soon welled up at the corners of his eyes as he demanded, "Why would you do this?" Luke Trake-Du said nothing, only watched as the man before him poured out the tea. He spoke slowly. "Wasn't second brother supposed to be the one who cared least for fame and gain? So all your calm and carefree ways were just an act." But the other remained silent. Just then, another voice cut in. You hid yourself away in Thuong Ki for so many years, obediently accepting punishment and following your mother into seclusion deep in the forest, plotting step by step. Jiang Yuanhan stepped out from behind. Did it never occur to you that the plans you thought were flawless had long since been seen through completely by the Luke family? At that moment, Heine stepped forward and bowed to him. Master, the various factions of Quan Ha Hall have basically all been purged. Luke Trine has been taken into custody and awaits your judgment. Also, Miss Lam Tom's wounds have been properly dressed. There is nothing serious. Hearing this, he said calmly, bring her here. At that moment, Mac Lam Tom burst in sobbing. Li Jiang, the moment he saw his beloved appear, his eyes shook violently. Lam Tum. The two of them immediately threw themselves into each other's arms. Lai Tran lifted her face and said softly, You're all right. That's wonderful. She spoke then, Lai Tran, but the next moment she slapped him. You idiot. You complete idiot. To help me escape, you actually dared do something so stupid. If you ever dare do that again, I'll push you into the river and feed you to the wolves. I'll drag you out there myself. You infuriate me to death. Just then, a pigeon flew by overhead, while below, his wailing went on and on. Wu Lam Tom, why are you so fierce? Over here, Luke Trake, could only laugh bitterly. Ah, so you knew all along, yet pretended not to, just to watch me. This clown put on a one-man show. Hearing this, Jiang Yuanhan replied slowly, Of course, I knew much earlier than you imagine. He spoke in despair. So you placed Hai Ni at my side years ago as a spy, just to monitor my every move? So you were already on guard against me from the very beginning. He answered indifferently. If you had no ambition for the position of family head, then she naturally would have remained no more than a chess piece. After your mother died, Hai Ni could also have been the best possible person to keep you company for life. The only fault is that your greed knew no bounds. For the sake of the family head seat, you chose to become an accomplice and murder your own half-brothers and father. Hearing this, he could not help sneering. Eldest brother, don't forget, I am your blood brother too. Hearing that, he replied coldly. From the moment you helped your mother scheme against and murder grandfather Luke, you ceased to be a member of the Luke family. That night, a report sounded from within the study. Master, we have taken control of all the branches along the canal previously managed by Luke Trine's men. We just don't know how this second young master ended up colluding with Luke Trine. At the time, he leisurely sipped his tea and explained, when his mother married into the Luke family, her own family had already declined. She had no family power to rely on. Later, after committing a grave mistake, she accepted exile into this deep forest. If she had not attached herself to another force, I'm afraid she never would have had a chance to rise again. Hearing this, the young man continued, This second young master truly is naive. A man like Luke Tryon has always been sinister, ruthless, and insatiably greedy. If Luke Tryon had truly taken control of the Luke family estate, how could it ever have been this second young master's turn to become family head? Suddenly, he asked, Quan Bao, do you know about cuckoos? That kind of bird lays its eggs in another bird's nest, relying on the mother bird's nourishment as its wings gradually grow strong. Then, once its wings are fully developed, it pushes the other chicks from the nest to their deaths and takes the nest for itself. How could Luke Trake be stupid? He has always handled this sort of thing with ease. It's getting late now. Go wake Lai Tran and have him come eat. At that moment, Tam Quan Bao rushed in a panic. This is bad. Young master, he's run away from home again. Miss Lam Tom has disappeared with him too. This is the letter we found on the young master's table. They must have taken advantage of the changing of the guard last night and fled under cover of darkness. Jiang Yuanhan quickly read the letter Lai Tran had left behind. Eldest brother, I understand your painstaking intentions, and I also understand the responsibility a member of the Luke family must shoulder. But I promised Miss Lam Tom that I would help her search for her family. There are also still some unclear matters that need to be investigated. Once everything is settled, I will return home in peace of mind and inherit the position of family head. For now, I'll have to trouble eldest brother a while longer. At this, the young man clutched his head and wailed, my young master. But the man opposite him only smiled faintly and murmured, That brat. Elsewhere, a pair of chopsticks was busily picking up food. Lai Tran was happily chewing away when Mac Lam Tom suddenly asked, Is this really all right? Eldest brother won't beat you half to death for this, will he? Hearing that, he hurriedly reassured her. It's fine. I know him too well. If he really didn't want to let me go, he would have tied me up and dragged me home that very day. And he even deliberately withdrew all the guards at night, which makes it obvious he was leaving us a way out. Hearing this, she said softly, So that's how it is. After eating her fill, she finally relaxed. Then I can rest easy. We're very safe now. Waiter, the bill. But when he opened his money pouch, his eyes suddenly went blank. Inside the pouch, there was only a drawing of Jiang Yuanhan making an ugly face. Seeing this, he froze in confusion. What is this? At the same time, the waiter beside them hurriedly asked, "May I ask which of you will be paying?" At that, he could not help shouting, "Eldest brother, you set me up again. I'm your own younger brother." Lai Tran slowly changed clothes as, in his mind, he narrated, "My name is Luke Lai Tran, the 37th family head of the Luke family of Tranam. This year, I have just turned 20. A few days ago, after returning from Chu Truck Fong City, I finally resolved the misunderstanding my wet nurse had harbored toward me all this time. Back in Fong City, an anxious voice had cried out, 'Fong City? Oh heavens, my silly girl. You finally come back.' Then, wiping away her tears, she said, 'I was only bored and idle. So I read a few pages of those Jianghu storybooks, just to tease you. Who would have thought you'd run off so fast? By the next day, when we came to our senses and chased after you, you were already long gone. Who could have guessed you'd run that quickly?' Hearing what the wet nurse said, the two of them were so shocked they froze. Back to the present. He thought to himself, 'A few days ago, Lam Tom and I finished our 2-year journey searching for her family and decided to return to the Luke family. Even though we still haven't found her relatives, at least during all those travels through mountains and rivers, we did have our share of happy days.' And today, as he spoke to this point, he took a deep breath. Then he decisively opened the door. Outside, everything was decorated in festive wedding splendor, red draped everywhere, the atmosphere lively beyond compare, and the servants were all overjoyed. At that moment, his mind reached a firm conclusion. This was the day of his and Lam Tom's wedding. Tam Quan Bao looked over, made a sound of surprise, then rushed forward. "Aya, my young master, you put on the wrong outfit. This is the one you're supposed to wear later when you respectfully offer the ceremonial wine. You should have worn this one first." Elsewhere, a maid stood attentively nearby while deft hands fixed a headpiece into carefully combed hair. Mac Lam Tom's face was already flushed red. The maid beside her could not help praising her when she saw the finished result. "Miss Lam Tom, you truly look breathtaking today." Just then, a figure entered and reminded them, "Taini, don't be rude. Starting tomorrow, you must all respectfully address her as Madam." Hearing the voice, she turned to look at the person behind her. "Taini?" The other maids immediately burst into giggles. "Yes, of course. We servants will change how we address her right away." Seeing this, the woman beside them angrily planted her hands on her hips and scolded, "All of you, behave yourselves." At this, Lam Tom said, somewhat flustered, "And no, it's all right. Being called Madam, it really feels strange." But the other woman came over and said gently, "The proper etiquette must still be observed, or these maids will learn bad manners and forget the distinction between high and low. There's only about 1 incense stick's worth of time left before the wedding begins." At this, Lam Tom's face turned red as a tomato. Lowering her head, she muttered, "Well, I'm still a little nervous. My hands keep shaking." Hai Ni quickly comforted her. "There's no need to worry. Actually, everyone who came today is family. According to the customs of the Luke family, we do not usually hold banquets for outside guests. It's only because Luke San has prospered in official circles over the past few years, and because the Luke family has always been a prominent clan overseeing the canals of Jiangnan, so dealings with local officials and high-ranking court ministers are unavoidable. A few days ago, Master already held a separate banquet to entertain the important court officials who came to offer their congratulations. Today it's only our own family gathering to make things more festive." Just as she finished speaking, the sound of a gong rang out from outside. The auspicious hour has arrived. At the same time, in another courtyard, a panicked voice rang out. "Ohat no, Guan Bao." Lai Tran is already dressed as the groom and in a hurry. "Are you done yet or not?" Tam Quan Bao was still sewing the clothing back together as he said, "Can you blame me for this? Wasn't it because you ate yourself too fat, young master, so the moment you moved, the robe split open?" Hearing this, Lai Tran blushed and retorted, "Nonsense. Hurry up. I can already hear the gongs and drums over there." Once they were done, the two of them hurried down the corridor. The young man behind urged him on. "Young master, hurry up." Lai Tran shouted back, I know. Stop talking so much." By the time they arrived, both master and servant were panting. "Li Zheng mutapante, I am exhausted." Suddenly, an exclamation sounded. "Oh my, the bride has arrived." Those words struck straight into his brain. At the same time, a little girl tugged excitedly at her mother's clothes and said, "Mother, look, the bride is so pretty." Lai Tran quickly lifted his head to look in that direction. Mac Lam Tom, dressed in wedding red, was walking toward him. The two looked at each other and smiled in happiness. Then hand in hand, they slowly entered the main hall. That night, Tam Quan Bao and the others shoved the groom into the bridal chamber. Embarrassed, he quickly said, "Stop pushing, stop pushing. All right, I know. Now hurry up and leave." The moment he entered, he hastily shut the door behind him. His heart was pounding wildly, his whole face flushed red. After a long moment, he finally sat down and looked toward the bride seated not far away, then hurried over. He stretched out a hand, but inwardly thought, "Why are my hands shaking?" Luke Lai Tran, at a crucial moment like this, you have to act like a man. Suddenly she spoke. You're still not lifting it? Tell me, have you regretted this already?" Then she removed the bridal veil herself and glared at him angrily. Hearing this, he hurriedly denied it. No, how could I? Heaven and earth, the sun and moon can all bear witness to my feelings for you. You absolutely must believe me. At this, she covered her mouth and burst out laughing. "Ha, I only saw that you were standing there frozen, so I couldn't resist teasing you a little. You were so nervous today that when you offered wine to eldest brother, you spilled it all over him. Didn't you see how green his face turned?" Laughing, she continued. At that, Lai Tran cried out in embarrassment. "You're no better. Today, someone nearly set her own wedding dress on fire while stepping over the brazier." As he spoke, he pushed the person before him down onto the bed, then looked at her and said softly, "Hey, this is my first time falling in love with a girl. Surely a few small mistakes can be forgiven, right?" She wrapped her arms around his neck and replied, "Since it's our wedding day, I'll forgive you." Hearing those words, Lai Tran blushed. He quickly lowered the bed curtains. "Just forgive me? No reward at all? My wife." Outside, the people eavesdropping made an uproar. "Oh, come on, stop pushing. Hai, Gunbao, let me see." With a loud bang, a scream rang out at the same time. Gunbao. Knowing he had been discovered, the young man hurriedly tried to flee. Ow, young master. This has nothing to do with me. It was all a tie pushing me." "Ah, young master, put the sword down first. We can talk this out." Then a stern voice sounded. "Wrong. This side is calculated wrong again. This part isn't right either." The one holding the brush had reached the limit of his patience. Lai Tran, looking angry enough to sprout leave from his head, said, "I would like to ask one thing. Why is it that I, the dignified family head, have to sit here balancing these incomprehensible, tangled account books?" Standing beside him, Tam Quan Bao declared in a ringing voice, "Ahem, reporting to the family head. This is the special instruction of Her Highness the Princess. Who told you to take last year's account books and use them to paste lanterns last month? The head family's account books are not allowed to contain even the slightest error, not even once in 100 years. This rule absolutely cannot be broken." The more he spoke, the graver and sterner his expression became. Hearing this, Lai Tran cried bitterly. How was I supposed to know eldest brother had recorded the books on shoe-issue paper? Once that shabby paper dried completely, all the writing disappeared. I thought it was pristine blank paper that had never been written on at all. How naive of me. Only then did the person beside him explain that the family head's account books were confidential to begin with, written on special paper like snowshin paper. What's more, it was all to guard against greedy people stealing the ledgers. The more he spoke, the louder he cried. Woo. But Tam Quan Bao said he didn't care and piled on another stack of books. "Dear, these are last year's ledgers for branch number 342. Young master, don't make any mistakes in the calculations." At that, the other party wailed, "Heavens above, what sin have I committed to deserve this?" Late at night, inside the room, hearing the noise, Mac Lam Tom turned around to look behind her. "Why are you back so late today?" When asked, Lai Tran, exhausted, immediately complained, "Isn't it all because eldest brother blamed me for ruining last year's account books?" Then he sat down beside her, wrapped an arm around the person next to him, and grumbled, "He punished me by making me copy all of last year's account books from every branch all over again. It's exhausting me to death." Her face flushed red as she said, "Isn't it because you were too careless? How could you even damage something this important? I'll help you copy them tomorrow." At that, the man behind her sighed and replied, No need. I've almost finished copying them all anyway." Then his eyes suddenly lit up. This jade pendant. Hearing that, she said, "Oh, this is the gift Miss Anan gave us back then after we parted ways with her and young Master Taini. Anan said that if we ever had time in the future, we could go to the western region to find them. She gave this to us as a token." But then her expression suddenly darkened. It's just a pity that, seeing her hesitate, he also remembered. After a moment of silence, his hand suddenly clenched. Then he grabbed the person in front of him. "How about we set out for the western region tomorrow? We can treat it as fulfilling the promise we made back then." Hearing this, she was completely stunned. Early the next morning, a bundle was tossed over the wall, followed by a flailing hand. Mac Lamb Tom struggled to climb up and said, "That's exactly what I mean. Why? Why do we still have to climb over the wall to get out?" The person below, whose face had just been stepped on, cried out in pain, "Ow." At that moment, Tam Quan Bao happened to pass by. Looking into the room, he called excitedly, "Young master, it's time for breakfast." But there was no one inside. Where's everyone? Then his attention fell on a slip of paper. This is... At that moment, Lai Tran had left behind a letter for Jian Yuanhan. "Eldest brother, Lam Tom, and I have decided to go to the western region to visit old friends. I'll leave all the account books to Quan Bao. I'm counting on you, brother." Li Jiang, after reading it, his hand unconsciously tightened. Then he shouted, "Master!" The young master snuck off from home again. In Persia, in Shiyeh City, the streets were bustling with excitement, and cries of amazement rang out non-stop. "Wow!" He was walking along, eating flatbread, while she looked around and said, "I never would have thought that Shiyeh City, less than 100 li from Yin Pass, would be such a completely different world." The person beside her replied, "Of course. Shiyeh City is the first city of the western region bordering the Central Plains. Yin City Pass is the border between the Central Plains and the western region. There's so many foreigners here. Once you pass Yin City Pass, naturally, you'll see much more of the western region's scenery." As he spoke, he opened his mouth wide and took a huge bite of the flatbread. When they reached the inn, he cried out in shock, "What? You mean every inn on this street is fully booked?" At that moment, the innkeeper said, "Oh my, not just this street. I'm afraid every inn in the city is fully booked already." "Do the two of you know the Dykmok family? They're the biggest merchant house in our western region. Today is the full month celebration of the eldest master's second son. Tonight, the Dykmok family will set off fireworks in celebration. That's why people from all the nearby small states have come to watch. The rooms were all booked up half a month ago." Hearing this, she said in surprise, "It's Tae Ni and Anan's child?" At that, he fell silent for a moment. Then, at the Dyke Mok residence in Shiyeh City, the two of them had just entered when they were stopped. "Please wait. The residence is preparing for the young master's full-month banquet today, so it is not convenient to receive guests. Please come again another day." Hearing that, Lai Tran awkwardly explained, We only wanted to come and see where some old friends once lived. A few years ago, my wife and I were once saved by young Master Tae Ni and Miss Anan of the Dykmok family. Having come here by chance and found the home of old friends, we only wish to pay a brief visit. We'll leave right away and won't disturb your household." As he spoke, he handed over the jade pendant. The other man accepted it, then frowned as he looked at the two before him, thinking to himself, "Isn't this the jade pendant the young master always carried with him?" Then he said, "Please wait a moment. I'll go inform the family head at once." Watching him go inside, she said worriedly, "I wonder who the current head of the Dykmok family is. If young master Tae Ni hadn't met with misfortune back then, this position should have been his." Hearing this, the person beside her comforted her. "No matter what, once we meet the master of the Dykmok family, we should sincerely thank them." She nodded in agreement. Suddenly, a familiar voice rang out, "Lam Tom." She jolted in surprise. A figure rushed forward and hugged her, repeatedly pouring out her longing. "Wow, this is wonderful. I've finally seen you again. I thought you'd never come to the western region." Standing nearby, he asked with a dazed expression, "Why you? You miss Anan." Just then, another voice cut in. "Young Master Lai Tran, Miss Lam Tom, my wife was just thinking about you yesterday. I didn't expect to meet you today. Come in and sit. I've already told the servants to prepare food." Tani Dykmok stepped out and spoke hurriedly. At the same time, a startled voice rang out. "So you too didn't die?" Inside, Anan choked up and said, "Back then, we left in such a hurry that we forgot to ask where your home was. I never thought you would really come to find us." Sitting beside her, he said slowly, "My wife has always remembered the two of you. I often comforted her, saying that when fate came, we would naturally meet again." At that moment, Lai Tran could not help asking, "Then how did young Master Tae Ni and Miss Anan escape danger back then?" "After that, we met in Hyatt Wai Na while she was injured. She told us that your situation at the time was extremely perilous, that it was practically certain death." Hearing this, she replied in alarm, "Even now, when I think back to it, I'm still terrified. Tae Ni was gravely wounded then, and at the time I truly thought we were definitely going to die. Fortunately, another wandering hero appeared afterward. He helped us drive off the assassins blocking our path and held out until the Dyke Mok family's guard arrived in time." Hearing this, Mac Lam Tom repeated in surprise, "A hero, dressed in black." The person opposite them became more and more animated as she spoke. Yes, He was dressed all in black, with his face covered, and he carried a black iron sword. After driving off the assassins, he didn't say a single word before leaving. He was probably just a wandering hero who stepped in when he saw injustice on the road. At the same time, she continued asking, "Also, afterward we met Miss Manhwa at Wina while she was injured and took her to a physician's home to recover. I wonder whether Miss Manhwa at Wina has healed and returned to Shia by now." Hearing that, Anan sighed and said, "She's not coming back, not coming back. That little girl fell in love at first sight with the scholar who treated her and decided to stay in the Central Plains and become a Central Plains bride. Woe is me. I raised her all these years, and before I could bring home the cabbage, the pig ran off instead." At night, the lamps were lit and two figures stood gazing at the scene. Suddenly she said, "It's truly so lively. The last time I wore this outfit was years ago, and now, to be reunited with old friends, it really feels like a dream." Hearing this, he said softly, "What matters most to me is..." Then he took his beloved's hand and continued slowly. After all the twists and turns, everyone is living happily. This is the end of the story. If you enjoyed it, please give me a like and a share, so I'll have more motivation to make more videos. Don't forget to follow to watch the next episodes. Wishing you all a day full of energy.